The protagonist of our story, Henry Bell, has no desire to work. The routine bores him to death, driving him mad. He wonders if there's a way to live without the daily grind. His doctor notes that Henry seems burned out. Of course he's burned out. He's been stuck in this lousy job for far too long. Mentally, he's exhausted. Like a rubber band stretched to its limit, his mind is in desperate need of recovery. But taking time off isn't an option, so the doctor hands him a jar of pills, as always. The next appointment is set for 23 years later, so naturally he's given a prescription to last him those 23 years. The doctor asks if there's anything else, but Henry is already on his way out. The doc farewells him, saying they'll meet in 23 years. The therapist can't imagine living without working. No way there is a thing like that. Because if you don't work, you will die. Henry steps out of the hospital into a bright, sunny day. People are walking. Children are playing in the park. Suddenly, a disaster alert sounds, urging citizens to seek shelter. Henry's phone rings. A woman on the other end informs him there's a job. It's a bank robbery. Just the type of mission that Korea's top agent would handle. The pay is the same as last time, and Henry hangs up, bored by the news. Police patrols line the streets, focused on protecting civilians. Henry spots Inspector Bram Terry, an old acquaintance who is an orc, and asks if it's just one suspect. Bram confirms, saying it's a single criminal. According to the last escape, there are a total of 4 hostages. Everyone is unconscious except for one. Henry decides to take over from there. Bram looks confused. It isn't the police who will handle this. Henry, an agent of the Immigration Bureau, is now in charge. Our character approaches the bank, scattering a handful of flyers. It immediately starts to radiate the magic, then Henry will get going. Bram orders the civilians to disperse, now that the Immigration Bureau has taken over. A colleague mentions the magician Henry Bell, finally realizing who he is. Confused, the man asks if the immigration office isn't just for handling foreign nationals. Bram recalls the man hadn't learned the difference between the immigration office and the Immigration Bureau back in school. The guy says he worked on night shifts, so was busy sleeping during the class. He didn't even have enough time to make money, not talking about studying. Bram shouldn't have brought this up. Then the inspector sighs, realizing he'll have to explain. The immigration office deals with foreign nationals and routine complaints, but a special agent of the Immigration Bureau, like Henry Bell, handles extra special foreigners. In simpler terms, Henry deals with those from beyond the sea, and today's case involves an unexpected visitor. Then inside that bank is an illegal immigrant on another level. There must be an uninvited guest from very far away. John Barnett, age 31, unemployed. The man awakened as a registered ability user last year. He tried to join security companies but failed. Henry notices a green glow moments before a sofa hurtles toward him. John's specialty appears to be telekinesis. The criminal drags someone's body, annoyed at Henry's presence, questioning how he got inside. Our character asks to release the hostage, but the outlaw tells him to fuck off. Henry makes it clear that he won't kill the criminal if he surrenders now, but warns that any further moves will have consequences. The criminal orders to shut up and just do as he says. Henry repeats that it's his last warning, but the irritated now criminal tells to shut up once again. The guy says he's not playing around and our character can't treat him like trash just because he's unemployed. He reflects on his life, having thought that awakening these powers would change things, but instead he's trapped in despair. The guy screams he shouldn't be the only one to suffer like this. Suddenly a thought clicks. He remembers coming to the bank for his unemployment check. But a strange elderly woman pointed out something on his back. When she touched him, he felt pain and blacked out. He can't remember what happened after that. The grandma he's dragging starts to laugh, impressed that Henry saw through her disguise. As she stands, a strange green substance spreads over the man's hand. The old woman says Henry has a good nose for a dog of the Immigration Bureau. He'd be a fool to not notice. Our character did well breaking her brainwashing. She thought he was just talking all that crap for no reason, but to think he hit a spell undo the brainwashing in his words. The woman notices her sacrifice to be alive. But a demonic presence now consumes the man, causing green energy to surge through his veins. This woman is a criminal from the Odin's dimension, named Atrela Daphne. Her record includes 3 counts of attempted murder, 12 murders, 49 thefts, smuggling contraband, and unauthorized entry into a primitive dimension. And that doesn't even count her crimes on Earth. Henry pulls out a knife, having given her a chance that she chose to waste. He cuts his palm, squeezing until blood flows. Atrela instantly senses the ominous power, recognizing it as dark magic. Dark magic is drawn from the pain of sacrifices, condensing the absorbed life force. It is deemed illegal by the country, but allowed in case of self-sacrifice for public good or self-defense. However, the life force you sacrifice will never recover. Atrela wonders how much life force a mere human could offer up. She is seeing this as an opportunity to gain his power, but Henry mutters a spell, and a massive black hand with a glowing eye appears, engulfing the man's body. Even Atrela is stunned. She's shocked that a human could wield so much dark magic. She realizes that Henry must have sacrificed decades of his life for this single encounter. In awe, she wonders what he truly is, but Henry himself remains uncertain. Atrela doesn't quite know what our character is up to, but she's not just going to stand there and find out. She lunges at Henry. In a heartbeat, she's torn to shreds. She never imagined he'd be this strong. Henry wonders if she's in pain. It seems Atrela got more than she expected. The old woman's head pleads with him to wait, offering to compensate him if he lets her live. Henry questions her intentions. Atrela explains that there's a reason so many criminals are gathering on Earth. A renowned fortune teller foretold something significant. In a remote part of the dimension, there exists a soul fragment left behind by history's most notorious criminal. Atrela claims she has a recording containing a hint that could lead to this soul. She implies that if Henry were to sell it, there would be countless people vying for the bounty. She promises to help if he lets her live, but Henry isn't interested. Selling such information would put him on the committee's wanted list, with a reward higher than Atrela could offer. It's absurd that she's attempting to deceive him to the very end. At that moment, Atrela senses something terrifying about Henry's left hand. The life force drained through dark magic is beyond recovery. According to the law of the galaxy, it should be impossible. Atrela tries once more, asking what race Henry belongs to. He simply responds that he doesn't know. Those are the last words she ever hears. Henry has lost count of the alien criminals he's killed on Earth. He's weary of it all. He notices the hostage is still alive for now. Reflecting on it, he finds it ironic that so much chaos arose over a man whose crime was merely robbing a couple of banks. He almost feels a twinge of envy. Henry steps out of the bank a moment later. Inspector Bram approaches, asking if the situation is handled. Henry confirms and tells Bram to manage the aftermath. Bram checks on the hostage. The hostage is alive, barely. It's a relief that the man didn't die, nor was he a robber. It'd be hard to stomach seeing a young man dead with a hole in his head. Actually, there are holes all over John's body. Henry reminds him, as he has 1,000 times before, that it's difficult to do this job with such sentiments. Our hero to meet for a drink soon, and Bram agrees. Suddenly, Henry's phone vibrates. A message notifies him that 223 million won has been deposited into his account by the Korean Government Immigration Bureau and a benefactor named Jenkinson. Henry heads to the road to catch a taxi. The driver inquires about the destination, and the character directs him to a bookstore in Sangroksu. Publicly, Henry Bell is known as the legendary immigration agent with an impressive 99% case clear rate. However, what few know is that Henry is an alien. Years ago, he committed a crime and, rather than being executed, was captured. They erased his memories, altered his body, and sentenced him to labor reform. All the necessary jobs that are shunned by the public are given to people like Henry, who had their memories altered. Work as a prison, and quitting as a release. Each successful mission he completes in the remote outpost called Earth earns him a universal currency known as dalant. To buy his freedom, he needs a severance pay of 5 million dalant. Here, severance pay has a different meaning. It's not the amount you get when you retire, but the amount you have to pay in order to retire. His reward from today's mission? Just a few thousand dalant. As a prisoner, reaching that amount is nearly impossible. Many would likely consider stealing Earth's currency to convert it to dalant, desperate for their release. Perhaps they're struggling to avoid ending up like Henry. He's grown tired of this life. Unfortunately, the amount of rewards the system gives isn't even close to 5 million. Then he notices an assignment. Retrieve and turn in the soul of a criminal, identified by a certain ID, for 7 million dalant. A top fortune teller had predicted this opportunity. In the farthest reaches of the dimension lies a soul fragment, dropped by the worst criminal in history. If only Henry can complete this one mission. Noticing his silence, the driver suggests that work must be tough, but advises sticking with it. Henry, however, is ready to leave. He's been at this for far too long. Who would have thought he'd be working here for over 800 years? This time, Henry will surely quit this damn company. The police chief asks Bram if he knows the 3 most effective ways to kill a direct superior at work. The orc suggests shooting them in the head, slitting their throat, or using abilities to take them out. But the chief disagrees. He says the first way is to do a half-hearted job so they die from high blood pressure. Second, make a mess by doing work that wasn't assigned, getting them fired and eventually starving to death. And third, ignore the chain of command and spread nonsense about the chief. This way, the superior will stress out to the point of getting cancer. Bram can't understand why the chief keeps asking for more manpower. The area that Team 4 is responsible for is too dangerous for civilian corps support. The chief snaps that it's just Bram's opinion. He tells Bram to stop trying to stress him to death and get out of his face. The chief then hands him a case that was originally assigned to Team 2, telling him to take it over. Bram notices it's a missing persons case and mentions they're already short on manpower. The chief throws papers at him, ordering him to stop talking and handle it himself if there's not enough manpower. The chief is clearly frustrated by how slow and annoying the orcs can be. Bram stands rooted to the spot but eventually leaves after the chief's outburst. Henry arrives at the office. He meets Kathy Kang, his assistant, who asks if he could change his phone. She's tired of having to send texts separately to everyone. Henry has become her second most contacted person. He even surpassed her mom. Her number one contact, though, is still her credit card company. Our hero asks about the box on his desk. Kathy says she picked it up on the way. Henry remarks that it's way too many potatoes. No one who lives alone needs this many. The girl tells him they're meant to share, and jokes that since he's an old man, he must like famine foods. Henry sighs, asking her to be a bit more frugal. He figures Kathy must have come all the way here for work. She explains she asked the Immigration Bureau to hold off on a case. She wasn't sure if Henry would want to take it up. For Kathy to say that, it must be pretty serious. Henry asks if it's a missing persons case. Turns out, yes, it's about Michael Clark, the president of Hyosung Industries. Clark's the head of a company worth $300 billion, but he hasn't shown up for work since last week. He vanished without a trace. The Bureau suspects he might be an alien living on Earth without paperwork. They need proof he's an alien, especially if he doesn't come back. Otherwise, the government won't be able to claim his stocks. Henry asks if he has any heirs, but Kathy says there's no immediate family or even cousins. There's a will, but the Bureau hasn't gotten hold of it yet. Since it's possible to inherit even without blood relation, they're eager to grab it before the will is found. Henry tells Kathy she's too close and lightly pushes her away. He figures that if she's bringing him something as mundane as a missing persons case, the government must be eyeing those stocks. It might not be a bad opportunity to clear some debt this time. Henry decides to get started. He tells Kathy to lock up when she leaves. The girl thinks Henry's quite the workaholic, diving right in like that. As he heads out, Henry runs into Oliver, an orc boy. Oliver greets him, calling him master. Henry reminds him to stop calling him that. He suggests using brother or boss, but Oliver finds the pronunciation too tricky. And since the actual boss is on the first floor, it's confusing. Henry wonders why Mr. Lakefield introduced him as the store's master in the first place. Our character tells Oliver they'll come up with something other than master. Henry enters the bookstore, amazed by how Mr. Lakefield revived the place. Mr. Lakefield, an elf and the bookstore's owner, greets him. He tells our hero not to even think about raising another plant. He's still annoyed that Henry managed to dry up a cactus. Henry explains he didn't buy the cactus. Kathy gifted it to him. But the elf still grumbles about Henry turning the bookstore into a flower shop. Our character asks if Oliver's doing a good job. They both watch him for a moment, agreeing that the boy sure works hard. Mr. Lakefield asks how he can help, suspecting Henry didn't come just for a chat. The hero says he needs help finding someone since that's the elf's specialty. Lakefield, a former U.S. agent, quickly picks up on what's needed. The elf agrees, especially since it's Henry Bell asking. Henry offers to reduce this month's rent in return. Mr. Lakefield declines, saying he has his pride. The rent's already practically free. The elf summons an elemental spirit for help. When summoned, these spirits take the form of the person the summoner misses most. Lakefield summons a spirit so quickly that Henry asks if he has a secret. The elf simply says it's all about focus and practice. Lakefield shows the spirit a photo of Michael Clark and asks for help finding him. The elemental gets to work right away. Lakefield promises to contact Henry when he has news. Later, someone knocks on Henry's door while he's resting at home. It's Oliver telling him that Mr. Lakefield needs to see him. The hero is impressed that Lakefield found Michael so fast. The elf really is the best in this field. But Lakefield wants to know why Henry is looking for Michael. The hero hints he just wants to ask Michael a few questions. The elf doesn't fully believe him and suggests he take a professional along if things get serious. No way. Michael Clark doesn't seem to be breathing. He's dead. Lakefield isn't even sure if this thing is human. It'd be hard to call that a human. Henry rushes to the scene and finds a man hanging. He calls Kathy, saying he found a letter in the man's pocket. Other than some talk about a will, there's nothing useful. Kathy says the Immigration Bureau hasn't located the will yet. She heard it's in the VIP vault of Changchun Bank. If it's at Changchun Bank's head office, there's no way to get to it. Henry suggests they forget the will and check Michael Clark's house instead. He says they should back off if proving Michael's an alien is going to be difficult. The hero is surprised to run into Bram there. The orc seems just as confused. The agent mentions he was wondering what to do, but it's great that they know each other. He tells them to just return the keys when they're done here. Looks like there was a double booking. Henry calls to clarify the situation. Bram says there's nothing to clarify. They'll probably just tell him to support Henry. The orc realizes this case was passed to him by Team 2's leader. Henry asks if another team was handling this first. There was a recent wave of missing cases of elves, so Team 2 was sent to the Special Investigations headquarters and left the missing case for a single person to them. Orcs go missing in large numbers every day. The Team 2 leader likely figured that the Bureau would get the credit, so they passed it off to Team 4. Henry's actually glad it's Bram who's handling it. He'd rather work with Bram than deal with people with no sense. Bram appreciates the compliment, just as the chief calls him. The chief tells Bram that someone from the Bureau will be there and that they should cooperate. Annoyed, Bram just says, "Got it," and hangs up. Henry suggests they split the reward after this case is done, but Bram just asks for a good drink instead. The hero agrees, saying they'd better earn some cash for those drinks. They start inspecting Michael's house. Bram mentions he'll send Henry the copied hard drive tomorrow. Suddenly, they hear a strange sound. The inspector thinks it sounds like a sword cry, like from an ego sword. Henry hushes him, thinking it might be evidence. They head to the kitchen and realize it's just a frying pan making the noise. Bram can't believe a frying pan could make a sound like that. Suddenly, he throws the pan onto the floor with all his might. Bram yells that the pan talked, and Henry asks if that's really a reason to throw it. The orc insists the frying pan was making strange noises. Henry hears what sounds like moaning and ends up throwing the pan himself. He asks the pan what it is, and it actually answers, thanking him for asking. The pan introduces itself as the Great Chef from the Elidum dimension, holding part of Dignov Alcha Tadku's memory. Henry sighs, realizing it's a cooking utensil with built-in AI. He figures it's some kind of homunculus. Since it likely contains Michael Clark's DNA, a test would probably confirm it's him. Henry wonders why someone would hang a fake in the forest a week after Michael went missing. There must be a reason. If the death of human Michael Clark is revealed, the one to benefit would be the inheritor that received the 300 billion. The one to lose out would be the country that won't be able to collect the wealth of an illegal alien. Even if Michael was an alien and staged his own death, creating a homunculus would be nearly impossible without immense resources. Only one of Korea's top 7 wealthiest or someone with unique tech could pull that off. With a homunculus involved, this is getting too complicated. Henry considers dropping the case. He hopes to find some solid evidence at Michael's place and heads back to Clark's house. The pan has apparently been gathering dust for ages. It's actually kind of exciting to finally have some company. The ego within it is top tier. You don't just find this kind of thing on Earth, so Michael Clark might indeed be an alien. The pan explains it can see and record anything within 3 meters, allowing it to recognize ingredients and offer cooking tips. It can also understand people through a mind connection, but Henry just considers tossing it. Michael apparently used the pan often. Henry has a lot of questions about Michael, but the pan has a favor to ask. It wants him to throw it again, saying it enjoys a bit of neglect play, but a new experience would be refreshing. Henry's at a loss, so he just tosses it aside. The pan recalls that Michael seemed like a normal human every time it saw him. It last saw him a week ago, around 2 a.m. It saw Michael leave in the middle of the night and wondered what he was up to. The next day, the pan sensed movement in the living room and felt relieved, thinking he'd come back safely. Henry is shocked. He asks Bram if anyone has entered the house since Michael left. Bram says today was the first time anyone's opened the door since Michael vanished. The pan is sure the person it sensed wasn't Michael. It says someone has been sneaking in, searching the place, and leaving just before sunrise. This happened for 5 days, but they haven't shown up recently. Unfortunately, the pan doesn't have night vision, so it couldn't see their face, but the silhouette looked human. Whoever it was, they must have used magic to enter and leave without using the door. Someone's definitely been here before Henry and Bram, probably getting in and out with warp magic. The hero realizes he should be searching for magical traces from the past, not the present. Bram, confused, asks what's going on. Henry explains that magic leaves a trace in the spirit world, which overlaps with the material world. Now he just needs to track the traces of warp magic to find out who entered the house. Henry locates the spot where the intruder appeared, and the pan confirms it's where they came in. He finds 10 traces of warp magic, which matches perfectly for someone coming and going 5 times. The hero suggests following the traces, and Bram asks about the frying pan. Henry decides to bring it along since it's their only witness. The pan is thrilled, asking if this is a kidnapping and bondage situation. Henry and Bram agree to keep their hands off the pan until they actually need it. The orc asks if all magicians can do this, but Henry replies that only experienced ones can, like him. Bram notes that as a quarter elf, Henry must have been using magic for a long time. The orc plans to retire in 5 years. Though orcs age slowly, they age all at once. The hero comments that Bram looks pretty fresh and fit for an orc. He jokingly asks if Bram wants to work in his office after retirement, But Bram reminds him of their house rules. Henry jokes that their rules are so long it's impossible to memorize them all. Bram tells him to just stick to what's within his means. He'll be able to if it's within his means. Henry tells to forget it. His mom will throw a fit. Suddenly, they overhear a speech about a Humans for Humans party, saying Earth belongs to humans. The group is demanding power be returned to humans. Henry switches on the radio, suggesting they listen instead. They hear about Princess Berm of the Galanko Dimension's upcoming visit. There are rumors this visit is preparation for a mass immigration, but the United Nations denies it. Spirits are protesting outside Congress, asking for the right to exist and privacy protections. Henry asks Bram to stop the car when he feels the warp traces split. They've arrived in an orc community. If someone was coming here every night for 5 days, they might have set up a temporary base. This neighborhood is a good spot for that. Luckily, there's no invisibility magic. Henry wants to check the local CCTV. He leaves it to Bram. The next day, Bram reports there's no CCTV in the entire neighborhood, which surprises Henry. Bram reminds him that orc neighborhoods don't exactly have great security. Without CCTV, Henry will have to go old school. He sighs at the thought of doing a manual investigation in the 21st century. They go to the orc pub and meet Sean, the bartender. Sean asks why Bram's there and guesses he got a report. Henry's surprised Sean knows Bram, but Bram says this is his jurisdiction too. Bram just wants to ask Sean a few questions and then leave. He asks if Sean has seen any suspicious people. Bram shows him a photo explaining that the person mainly operates at night and probably smells like magic. Sean says he'll check around and makes a call, asking them to wait. If Sean doesn't know anything, then this wizard likely isn't around here. Soon Sean returns, saying someone saw a person matching the description in the 3rd district. Henry's surprised that this is easier than expected. Since orc neighborhoods are unsafe, most people stay indoors at night. So if the guy was walking around every night, he'd be easy to spot. Just then, Henry announces that he's found their man. He's certain it's the guy who used warp magic. He can sense it. The man has used a barrier, likely to protect himself. He's put up several, so he's probably not very skilled. Henry suggests breaking them one by one. The man's quick-witted, but Henry tells Bram to hang back since he's about to run. Henry uses dark magic to sneak into the apartment. He breaks through the wall, watching as the guy tries to escape. The guy's almost gone, but Henry uses magic to grab his arms and legs. The man's wrapped up and slammed onto the ground. They finally got him. Henry and Bram tie him to a chair. From the mark on his chest, it's clear he's with the Society. The Society, if Henry's right, is a criminal organization of ability users, a place where only the worst gather. The guy's phone is wiped clean and his room's empty. Looks like they won't find much here. As Bram starts explaining which law the guy broke, the man spits in his face, hurling insults. The guy sneers, calling Bram less than human, a fraud pretending to be one, even wearing a police uniform and all. The guy's so pissed off that he'd tear Bram apart. Henry can't help Bram if he says something like that. Just then, the inspector pulls out a hammer. Henry tells him to put it away, saying he's got something better. Bram initially thinks it's a knife, but then a tiny fly emerges from Henry's hand, sending a chill down the guy's spine. He probably realizes what's coming. Henry asks if he's ready to talk. The guy refuses, so the fly dives straight into his nose. Henry asks Bram for the recorder. The man starts crying as our character murmurs a spell. Bram asks about the fly, and Henry says it's a happy bug. The bug directly stimulates the man's brain, flooding it with dopamine and creating an intense wave of happiness. Henry recorded the spell, so he can use it whenever needed. It's going on for a while. The guy's begging to be allowed back to that place. Henry offers to start over. He shows the man he has control over the happy bug. If the guy talks, the hero will let him return to his happy memories. The guy insists he doesn't know where Michael Clark is. His job was just to find a hidden vault in Clark's house and deliver its contents to the client. Odd. Henry didn't see any vault when he searched. Then the hero presses him about the client, but the guy claims he doesn't know the name, muttering other nonsense. Bram is livid, accusing the man of lying, but the guy swears he's telling the truth, confirmed by the command center. Bram asks what their next move is. Things are getting risky. This is getting complicated, especially since the client is a dragon. Dragons can rise to the top of the social ladder in a single generation. Many have mysteriously disappeared after crossing dragons. With their wealth and power, dragons secretly pull society's strings. Henry still has a few more questions. Later, the police patrol takes the man into custody. Our character tells the police they should at least listen to the recording if they don't want to take his word. Bram asks if the man will stay in his current state. Henry shrugs, saying to leave him be. The guy's just enjoying his happy buzz. Reporting to the police was actually a smart move. Typically, people don't survive after something like this. If he gets the right treatment, he's got a 50% chance. but it all depends on how the wizard's potion affected him. Henry and Bram head to Mr. Clark's house, the radio playing in the background. News breaks that Princess Verme's first official trip will be to Korea. Most dragons wouldn't bother with this. Henry suspects there are 4 culprits, but he still can't figure out their motives. Who's behind this? The radio mentions Hyosung Industry hitting a stock high due to a big treasury buy, boosting its market cap by 15%. A few minutes later, Henry realizes that Hyosung Industry is Michael Clark's company. He wonders if it's typical for the company to manage big moves without its boss around. Bram suggests Michael might have approved it before he vanished. Henry invites Bram to eat, mentioning Kathy made the food herself. With what they learned from the HS guy, Henry searches Clark's house again for hidden cash, but comes up empty. Even the frying pan has no answers. Henry and Bram return to the office to figure out their next steps. Henry's worn out, proposing they just drop the case. He's at a dead end. Tomorrow, he'll go to the Immigration Bureau. Suddenly, Kathy bursts into the room. Surprised, she asks why Uncle Bram is here. The orc questions why she calls him that. Kathy says it's because of his face. She's puzzled by the frying pan, teasing that they want to cook without her. Henry warns that if she touches it, she'll get more than she bargained for. As soon as she picks it up, the pan greets her. Shocked, she asks if it has a mind of its own. The pan says she can call it retardee. Confused, she asks if it has another name since retard isn't exactly polite. The pan introduces itself as Digna Valchataikyu. Henry tells her not to get any ideas about taking the pan. She notices something off in Henry's expression, asking if there's a problem. She's sure something's up. Good thing she brought alcohol. No wonder she craved it today. Henry says he's not in the mood to drink, and Bram has to drive. But Kathy shows them a Kingsley Aston 37-year-old dwarf maestro collection bottle. They right away jump up to grab snacks. Soon the table is packed with drinks and food. A few hours later, they're all tipsy. Night falls, and Henry finally crashes. He feels half dead. He wonders if he's getting drunk, but it's probably just a minor hangover. Our hero doesn't even know why he drank. Maybe the Graham Empire's crown prince made him? Wait, that was 250 years ago. He has to handle it alone. He's a necromancer with a curse, after all. But those days are long gone. Now he's just Henry Bell on Earth. Suddenly, Oliver wakes him up. It's morning already. Perfect timing. Jenkinson has requested Henry's presence. Something's going down. Security drives Henry to the meeting. It's Jenkinson's office. Henry wonders why he's been called. Maybe it's about what he and Bram discovered yesterday. He's escorted to the CEO's office. Blair, the head secretary for Jenkinson's corporation, is already waiting. The next morning, Henry's chopping potatoes with his special knife. Kathy asks why he doesn't use a different one. He insists it's the best. But she heard it's a relic once used for human sacrifice. Henry says it's fine. It's neutralized with magic. He asks Bram if they're searching different locations today. Yeah, the orcs got something to report first. On TV, there's news from the entertainment industry. Elf actress Arenda Sarafi C is now the muse for X-Mex and has wrapped a perfume ad. It apparently smells like an elf's natural scent. Kathy didn't even know how good their body odor was until they made a perfume like that. She turns to Henry, wondering why he doesn't have a scent. Actually, Henry's at the prime age for an elf. Well, they say it won't manifest if it's diluted before the quarter. Henry meets with Blair again. He asks if something's wrong. She explains that the case of Michael Clark's disappearance, which Henry's handling, has piqued Jenkinson's interest. After learning about the HS member's identity, he ordered Blair to reach out to the lead investigator. Blair asks if Henry suspects a dragon cub hired the gang. Jenkinson has narrowed it down to 3 likely suspects, matching Henry's thoughts, though he's still puzzled. So he asks why the chairman wanted him here. Blair questions Henry's knowledge of Hyosung Industry. Henry assumes it's a pharmaceutical company. Outwardly, yes, but Hyosung Industrial Company Limited, run by Michael Clark, has a secret mission. Henry comments that they're in business, so naturally, they're allowed to make such moves. The real issue lies in their research, which involves risky experiments. Blair mentions that the research focuses on the genetics of the dragon family, and Henry quickly grasps the significance. Dragons, immune to poison and incredibly strong, might attract this kind of attention. Yet dragons with their pride would never willingly let humans study them. Perhaps the one who attacked Michael was a dragon cub, furious about this research and proud of their noble lineage. Henry wonders if Blair believes a dragon cub was involved, but he doubts Jenkinson would risk his reputation on such actions. Our character asks how Blair could suspect that Chairman Michael Clark might be an alien. The woman explains that there's no confirmation yet, as Michael vanished without a trace. Building a company almost overnight seems too suspicious, especially with his sudden rise. If Michael Clark truly is an alien, and the government or immigration authorities find out, they might prefer to ignore it altogether. Sweeping it under the rug would keep things tidy for them. Plus, with Clark gone, this whole investigation would likely grind to a halt. Blair nudges Henry to pull up someone's profile. It's Sidney Young, the director at Hyosung Industries, who is still pursuing dangerous research. With the level of power she wields, erasing her tracks wouldn't be hard, adding to her already suspicious image. Sidney appears fiercely loyal to Clark, but what's her real motive? Leaking information about dragons could be an easy payday, and the temptation must be strong. Or maybe she has her sights set on taking over Clark's role. The idea that Sidney killed her boss lingers, but now that dragons are in the mix, it changes everything. Yet there's still a chance she's involved. Henry knows he shouldn't ignore it. The hero begins to apologize to Blair. Anticipating his hesitation, she hands him a letter to read. She suggests he take a look at it here and now. Left with little choice, our character decides to go along with it. Shortly after, Henry and Bram arrive at the Hyosung office for a meeting with Sidney Young. A peculiar, familiar scent catches Henry's attention as he steps in. Sidney states she's already disclosed everything to the human police. Henry senses there's something off about her. Too many things aren't adding up. Sidney attempts to cut the meeting short, citing her busy schedule, but Henry insists she stay. He brings up the recent disappearance of another executive, whom she never reported missing. Sidney dismisses it, saying the executive simply stopped reaching out. Henry mentions his unique ability, asking if she's ever come across the term ISP. ISP stands for interspecific sex pheromone, a perplexing biological phenomenon. Mutants who emit pheromones that attract other species are referred to as ISP manifestors. Henry's mission is to investigate these organisms whose pheromones lure species incapable of crossbreeding. To cut to the chase, he asks Sidney how long she's been involved with the dragon. ISP only activates after prolonged contact with another species. Jenkinson and Henry share the same suspicions, narrowing down their suspects to 3. Among them, the dragon with the strongest link to Sidney Young, the ISP manifestor, stands out. Henry questions Sidney about her connection to Adelines. A while later, he and Bram relax in the car, both stunned that Sidney just walked away without a word. Bram is curious how Henry pinpointed that particular dragon. Suddenly, the frying pan in the car vibrates, emitting strange sounds. The pan has something to say as they head to Hyosung Industries. It seems to think they were discussing someone it might know. The Great Chief exclaims it's Sidney. The hero is astounded the pan knows her. Apparently, she used to visit Michael's place frequently, even staying overnight every 1 or 2 weeks. During Bram's interrogation of Sidney earlier, a wiretapping spell was placed on her. Now from a distance, they can listen in on her conversations using a magic orb. She's on a call, mentioning the recent visit from 2 detectives. It's clear she's speaking to Adelines, venting frustration that he hasn't found a certain person yet. Sidney is desperate to locate this individual before the orcs do, growing angry that Adelines, a dragon, can't summon a spirit. Adelines coolly reminds her that spirit affinity isn't something dragons possess naturally. She mentions her extensive efforts, with numerous elves scouring for Michael Clark. This comment reminds Henry of a recent incident involving a missing elf. Adelines, unbothered, shifts blame onto the elves for their shortcomings, though one elf recently shared valuable information. She's heard of a skilled old elf hiding in a bookstore, and she's there to see this extraordinary spiritist. Realizing the dragon is at the bookstore, Henry recognizes Oliver's voice. A shiver runs down his spine. Bram wants to race there immediately, but Henry holds him back. Racing 19 kilometers through Seoul traffic would likely end the situation before they even arrived. Henry asks Bram to listen, cutting his hand with a knife as he speaks. It's a rap magic. Once the hero's completely transferred, Bram goes straight to Hyosung business. And secure Sidney's safety, Henry will resolve all procedural issues. Our character tells to lock her up in a suitable place until Henry contacts him, because if anything happens, she can be used as hostages. Bram stiffens, curious who Henry intends to threaten. The answer is clear. The dragon. Adelines, now inside the bookstore, searches for Mr. Lakefield. She demands he summon a spirit. But he replies that as a spiritist, his spirit is part of his very soul, not something he'd summon for just anyone. Adelines decides to take it easy without talking nonsense. She shows the photo of Michael and asks the elf to find this bastard as quickly as possible. Mr. Lakefield answers that he told everything clearly. When Mr. Lakefield refuses, Adelines lets out a roar that shakes the ground, her dragon power terrifying him. A roar like that, filled with the dragon's magical power, is shaking the elf's whole body and mind. Oliver rushes in, calling for his boss. He recalls Henry's warning about difficult customers and the steps he should take. Our character has organized most of it, but they'll still crawl out. He warned that those guys can come again. In this case, Henry told Oliver to find the big black book and pull it down with the right hand properly. When it comes out, a staircase will open to go down. Oliver is nervously doing that as he remembers. Meanwhile, Adelines tightens her grip on Mr. Lakefield, but a series of sudden explosions catches her off guard. Mr. Lakefield realizes why Henry left a cactus behind. It's a barrier against unwelcome guests. The elf quickly takes Oliver to safety on the second floor. Furious at being blocked from the bookstore, Adelines vows to tear them apart. A red streak in the sky signals Henry's arrival. Adelines taunts him, unaware of his intense rage. Henry recalls her history. 64 years old, she arrived on Earth 6 years ago with conditional citizenship. Due to prior issues in other realms, she couldn't obtain full citizenship. She's baffled by his knowledge. She probably has no idea who Henry is, acting like a little baby scared of an elder dragon. Henry guesses Adelines wouldn't know since she avoids dragon conventions. Adelines is ready to attack, but the hero asks if she really wants to revert to her true form here. He's sure the elder dragons will love it if Adelines causes problems here. He suggests she follow him to a more suitable location. Reluctantly, Adelines agrees, warning Henry he'll regret this. They soon arrive in a remote forest on the city's outskirts. Apparently, even Adelines fears the dragon elders enough to heed Henry's warning. She jokes that his tone makes it sound like she's fallen into a trap. Still, she threatens that Henry is done for. Henry finds her dragon form impressive, sparking memories of his last dragon hunt. His left hand, injured from the warp spell, is still healing, a reminder of the magic's toll. Henry cuts it off since he won't be able to use it anyway. If Adelines made a mess in his territory, she'll have to face the consequences now. Henry isn't holding back just because she's a young dragon. He brings out his special knife for the fight. Adelines can't believe how a human can move like this. She isn't going to hold back either. This lunatic is even using her breath attack in a place like this. Henry wonders if she's trying to start a forest fire. Out of a dragon's 6 brains, the one that controls magic output and balance is the posterior brain. Henry needs to hit that exact spot to cause a concussion. Fortunately, it works. The dragon's innate resistance barrier weakens from the blow. Now that the barrier is down, Henry throws a curse with his knife. Adeline screams in agony. The hero drives the knife into a dragon's pressure point that causes paralysis in the lower limbs. Adelines begs for her life. Henry warns her to at least learn fast if she's going to be so foolish and weak. He demands to know why Adelines dared to intrude on his territory. Just as he's about to land another strike, a voice stops him. A man's voice tells him not to go any further. Henry looks up at the moon. The man would prefer if Henry ends things here, watching him from a screen. But Henry isn't sure he can agree to that. The man turns out to be Chairman Jenkinson. Our character says Adelines invaded his territory, which Jenkinson understands all too well. Jenkinson also knows what this means. But he insists Henry stop as it's a matter of race and Jenkinson has no choice. Frustrated, the chairman asks Henry not to make things harder than they already are. Jenkinson brings up the Draconic Code, the law of dragons, which supersedes mortal laws. Under this code, only a dragon can kill another dragon. Breaking it is as good as declaring war against all dragons. Life as a dragon, especially as the chairman, must be challenging. Jenkinson says no one will hear about this from him. Henry yells that none of this would have happened if Jenkinson managed things better. He doesn't need to hear about the Draconic Code. This is his personal matter, and he's just dealing with someone who crossed into his territory. However, Jenkinson makes a personal request, asking his old friend to let this go. But Henry's anger won't just fade away. He decides he'll take some of Adeline's blood. It might shorten her life a bit, but it's better than her dying. Jenkinson agrees and promises to send a cleanup crew. A short while later, the crew arrives to handle the aftermath. Dragon body fluids, organs, and leather are incredibly valuable, though trading them is illegal. The Bureau will collect every drop left from the battle. The haul alone is worth millions. But nothing compares to the fresh blood of a dragon. Henry receives 10,000 dalent from his old friend. With this single case, he's nearly doubled his bank balance. Bram calls to confirm the money's transferred to his account. The orc has tied Sydney up outside just as Henry requested. Henry arrives quickly, ready to finish things. Sydney starts to argue that evidence obtained through wiretapping is inadmissible in court, but she doesn't need to worry about that. Henry will get a confession out of her with the help of a happy bug. Sydney's confession is more shocking than he could have anticipated. After meeting Adelines, Sydney realized she was an interspecies sex pheromone manifester. When Michael found out about her ISP ability, he made a request. He started drawing blood from her regularly. His research was aimed at discovering how ISP manifester blood affected dragon blood, trying to understand the mechanics. For his research, he needed as much dragon blood as he'd taken from Sydney. But Henry can't figure out how. She and Adelines shouldn't have crossed paths at that time. He wonders where Michael got all that dragon blood. He remembers Michael's other properties beyond the one in Hanamdong. There's a multi-use building in Hyundai, a condo in Jaikan, and a villa in Gashan. Henry is on his way there, calling Blair. The woman takes the call in Jenkinson's place. The hero orders her to connect him with Jenkinson immediately. Whatever the chairman's doing, he needs to hear this. After all, this is about an illegal immigrant, who shares his ancestry. Soon the chairman is already on his way to the location. Fire Dragon Jenkinson, if he knew it would come to this, should have acted sooner. The big question is why Michael Clark disappeared while researching dragons. He used an expensive homunculus as a substitute body for what appeared to be a suicide. The answer is simple. The research was complete. After drawing significant amounts of his own blood, Henry and Jenkinson confront Michael, claiming he orchestrated everything. A race capable of withdrawing large amounts of dragon blood, that means Michael isn't human. The Hyosung Industries chairman confirms Henry isn't the visitor he was expecting. This man's race is dragon. After another encounter with Sydney, Michael had been about to leave, suggesting she should consider seeing others. He didn't reveal his destination. They had known each other for over a decade. Sydney pleaded to know when, where, and why he was leaving. That's when she met Adelines. Michael's suggestion that she see others left her little choice. After the affair began, Sydney noticed strange changes in her body, eventually hoping she was pregnant with his child. She told Michael about a visit to the gynecologist, where she found out she was an ISP emitter, a dragon type. The unexpected result revealed her ISP manifestation. Michael made an odd request, as if her confession hadn't mattered. He asked for her blood. She was furious. Yet she eventually gave in and let him have it. As long as she could keep seeing him, she'd give him blood whenever he wanted. She might have given him as much as he asked for. But then Sydney snapped. Not only was Michael leaving, but he was also donating all his Hyosung Industries shares to charity. Hyosung Industries wasn't just Michael's company. They had built it together. Yet Michael withheld any further explanations. It was too much for Sydney. What was she to him? A valued colleague, a convenient office wife, or merely a lab rat with the right blood? Adeline sympathized with Sydney's anger, offering revenge on Michael. Adeline was ready to do it for her. Sydney accepted, but Michael was already gone before she could act. Henry informs Michael that the Immigration Bureau already searched his residence. Michael engineered Sydney's ISP factor to create a virus capable of bypassing dragon immunity and causing death. It's the only virus that can infiltrate the body of a dragon, which are called immortal bodies. Unfortunately, he ran out of time, leaving the research incomplete. Even though it didn't succeed, the attempt itself is a serious crime that cannot be contested even by pleading mental illness. Michael, however, asks if they truly think he's insane. After all, who else would create a virus targeting only dragons? Michael insists he's sane. He just despises dragons. After years of contemplation, he's finally certain. To him, dragons are parasites wrecking society's balance. To him, dragons are the cause of every problem, and eliminating them would cleanse the world. He believes they are the root of all evil, much like those humans who think the Earth would be better off without people. But even those who preach about saving the planet wouldn't just start killing people to reduce the population. That would be utterly insane. Michael has clearly gone off the deep end. Michael goes on, asking them to consider that dragons are like poison for society. They can easily seize control, regardless of the form society takes. He says other races blend together like a mix of colors that merge over time. But dragons, he argues, are like oil. Just as oil floats above water, dragons dominate and suffocate other races, corrupting society. Michael demands if Jenkinson doesn't see it too. But the chairman has zero patience for Michael's twisted philosophies. Henry steps in, asking if Mr. Clark even has a valid Earth citizenship right now. Or perhaps some kind of residence permit to legally stay on Earth. Unsurprisingly, Michael doesn't, just as Henry suspected. Henry slashes his hand and a barrier flickers into existence around him. Jenkinson never wanted to battle his own kind, but it seems unavoidable. He tries once more, asking Michael who he's been waiting for here. Michael stays silent. With no answer, Jenkinson decides he has to fight Michael as a dragon. And dragons, they don't hold back. It's been ages since Henry fought a dragon, let alone battled two in a single day. It's shaping up to be a massive clash, especially given the power surging near the water. The TV networks are already reporting a sudden massive typhoon forming off the coast of Sokcho, affecting the entire nation. The Korean Meteorological Administration is scrambling to understand the storm's origins. Local residents are urged to review their disaster procedures and stay indoors. Sydney watches the chaos unfold, unable to stop thinking about Michael. Meanwhile, Mia, the troll yoga instructor, is blissfully absorbed in her training. But suddenly she hears an odd sound, and a crow crashes right into her window. At a nearby school, a man who's been trying to hide the organization's secrets can't keep them buried any longer. Lost in thought, he's jolted back to reality when some kids accidentally bump into him. Thankfully, it seems the kids don't know anything. Mia stares out her window, struggling to make sense of everything. She sees a massive storm brewing outside, the sky flashing with strange lights. Henry has lost both arms. He and Jenkinson admit that Michael is far stronger than they anticipated. In fact, Michael is powerful enough to be considered an elder dragon. If things continue like this, Jenkinson fears he'll lose face. Time to show Michael what a true Elder Dragon can do. Jenkinson unleashes a blast of fire. The fight reaches its climax as Henry lands a critical hit on Michael. Afterward, the hero finds himself in a strange place. It's the threshold, the space where one clings to life before death. And Michael is there too. He asks Henry if he has the homunculus with him. The hero confirms he does. Michael leaves Henry with a final choice: what to do with the information he's about to reveal. Michael's will is stored in a VIP vault at Changcheon Bank's main branch. Just then a bus pulls up and Michael stands to leave. He hopes Henry will read his final message. But our character stops him, insisting on one more answer. Who is Michael's mysterious partner? Michael claims he doesn't know. He only accepted their offer. It allowed him to develop the virus without detection. And with that, Michael boards the bus and vanishes for good. In that moment, Michael Clark, the dragon, is truly gone. A week later, Henry visits a flower shop. The radio is playing the news. They're covering the unusual storm from last week, claiming it was a mere natural event. The shop assistant scoffs, saying no one believes that story. There's no way that storm was natural. Indeed, hiding the aftermath of such a battle is almost impossible. Michael shared a small secret with Henry just before his death. He'd planted a virus in his homunculus body, disguised as a corpse. It was infused with magic. Magic that would activate upon reaching temperatures of 500 degrees or higher. If the body had been cremated, the virus would have come to life, mixing with the smoke and dispersing far and wide, but luckily that won't happen. Henry handed the homunculus over to immigration authorities. They'll discover the virus while inspecting the body. But before handing it over, a gut feeling hit Henry hard. He knew he shouldn't touch that homunculus. His instincts are usually dead wrong, but his 800 years of experience told him to go against them this time. Now he possesses a virus that targets only dragons. He has to decide how to use it. On that bus station before Michael's death, the man smelled a familiar scent from Henry. He asked if Sydney is doing well. Henry had replied that she was getting by. Michael remarked that Sydney was always anxious, haunted by abandonment. She also had an obsessive fear of being thrown away. Maybe that's why Michael mixed up affection and anger. That woman stabbed Michael with a knife 3 times so far. Once, Sydney hid the fact that she had been meeting another young dragon secretly for months. Second time, she used drugs on Michael and treated him like her lab rat, and even called him a greedy trash who was greedy even for her stocks. And the last time, Sydney even planned to kidnap him with that stupid dragon. Michael figured he must have been a terrible person for Sydney to want to kill him thrice. Henry sums it up. Michael's shares in Hyosung Industries. He intended to donate it all to social welfare. His remaining assets, including money, stocks, art, jewelry, patents, and property, was appointed to a human woman who had maintained a relationship with him until before his death. What a foolish dragon. It's useless if you don't convey your feelings because everything is meaningless once you pass away. Sydney stands on the very shore where Michael met his end. His hat is still there. Michael has left for good. Though she once hated him enough to want him dead, though she hated him. The man she once loved, the one who was her superior, is gone. Henry turns to his Huatu cards for fortune-telling, muttering about his rotten luck. The forecast mentions sudden local storms and an unseasonably hot day. Relationship fortune-telling result is that there is a possibility of reuniting with someone Henry hasn't seen for a long time. The TV news announces that the International Alchemist Federation has agreed to boost gold production by 10 tons daily. Not exactly thrilling. Next up is the weather forecast and natural disaster alerts. There's calm rain predicted this afternoon. The disaster prediction, a mild earthquake of magnitude 2.6. Henry grumbles about the unreliability of the health forecast. Back before he came to Earth, he used divine powers to read fortunes. But it is from another star that aliens made to research on it, so it's different from Earth. Relationship fortune-telling result is that there is a possibility of reuniting with someone Henry hasn't seen for a long time. Kathy races down the road at top speed, leaving Henry feeling queasy. They finally arrive. Henry grumbles, asking if Kathy can try driving a bit slower. She suggests he get his own driver's license if he doesn't like it. Today's agenda, shopping. They spot a huge billboard advertising elf perfume. 2 assistants are already there, waiting for Henry's arrival. They've prepared everything he asked for and lead him to the VIP room. Kathy marvels at the magical treasures laid out. A top-grade elemental stone, dried brain slime, and fairy tree sap. All potent spell catalysts. Kathy asks Henry if there is any powerful raw material besides these that he wants to buy. Actually, he thought about something ordinary. She'd never guess in a million years. He's debating how much fresh dragon blood he'd need to handle Edelines. Today, Henry's assistant arrives to handle the 3 billion won payment and take care of some items for him. She estimates it'll take about an hour, suggesting Henry relax in the lounge. He decides to browse around. He bumps into a man, and it turns out the man knows Agent Henry Bell. Our character feels like he met him somewhere, but can't remember who he is. The troll introduces himself as Mark Phelps. Henry finally recalls. Mark is the lawyer overseeing Michael Clark's case. He'd helped Henry with those reports. Mark apologizes for not giving Henry enough time earlier, but now he invites Henry to sit down and chat for a while. Henry smiles and says he's an agent with the Immigration Bureau. Mark asks if the hero takes individual requests. Our character apologizes, saying he usually can't unless it's a special case. Mark shrugs, mentioning it's not actually about him. It's his client who has a problem. The man just tells to forget what he said. Mark says he has some business on the 3rd floor, so he'll go on ahead. But if Henry changes his mind, Mark hints he's open for a call. Our hero wonders if this is the destiny the fortune teller mentioned. Then again, it might not be. After all, he saw that troll just a few days ago. The assistant hands Henry the case, and he's ready to head back. Out of nowhere, Kathy asks if Henry didn't commit an enormous crime and underwent identity laundering in the past. The hero just smiles and asks if he looks like that. Kathy kept thinking about these two possibilities. Or there's another possibility, too. Either Henry has lived a completely innocent life, or he's never been involved in any major incidents. But, she adds, he just seems like a regular guy. Kathy has a knack for these things. Kathy then asks if she can ask him one personal question. Come to think, Kathy assumes he's a woman. Henry's floored by that suggestion. Kathy explains that he's so secretive she thought it might be possible. She begs him to just confirm whether he ever changed his gender. Henry screams that's really crossing the line, as they see plenty of bodyguards near the entrance. A red carpet rolls out, and it's clear someone important is arriving. One of the guards announces that the chairman is on his way. Henry wonders which chairman they mean. Just then, an old man with a cane enters, surrounded by security. Suddenly, the chairman rushes toward Henry, causing a stir. The old man stumbles and falls near Henry, calming everyone down. He asks our character if he's Mr. Henry Bell. Henry nods, and the old man grins, calling him Uni. Kathy shouts that her hunch was right as expected. Blair, however, doesn't look thrilled to see this person. And this person is Lalisa Andreeva, head of real estate security for Jenkinson's company, a fairy no less. Blair demands to know why Lalisa showed up unannounced. Lalisa explains that someone attempted to break into storage area B39 on Bukhan Mountain. Shouting, Blair asks what kind of crazy bastards would break into an elder dragon's territory. Lalisa shrugs, saying they must have been confident. Since it happened while the chairman was away, she warns Blair that security needs a serious upgrade. Blair says she'll notify the chairman first and increase the security near the storage. However, Lalisa doesn't think that'll be enough. Lalisa hints that Blair might have someone she can call in right now. Back with Henry, Kathy's still confused about why he's called Uni. The chairman explains that he and Henry taught at the same place decades ago, and Uni was just their thing back then. Our character warmly asks teacher Omancic how he's been. The chairman beams, saying he's been running a little alchemy shop. With a hopeful grin, he asks if Henry's still teaching magic. The hero says he gave up teaching long ago and now works for the Immigration Bureau. The chairman can hardly believe it. To think teacher Henry Bell is an agent, to think a kind person who couldn't even hurt a fly would do such a rough job. The chairman's daughter chimes in, asking if Henry takes requests from individuals or companies. But the old man stops her, saying that's enough. Remembering his errands, he says he has business on the 3rd floor and should get going. The chairman smiles, saying it was nice to see Henry again and suggesting they meet for tea sometime. As the day moves on, Henry mentions Gosung School, Korea's first modern ability academy. He tells Kathy he used to teach there alongside Omancic. A life of a teacher during the day, secretly capturing illegal aliens during the night. Kathy offers him to write a biography about himself. Henry says it's absurd since he's sure that the government doesn't even want to bring up the past. Kathy wonders if that's why he avoids talking about his past. A hero that set the foundation for Korean ability users and protected the Earth from dangerous criminals. Henry's more amazing of a person, Kathy thought. But there's a hidden truth no one, not even Kathy, knows. Earth's already been taken over. Some blame the dragons for the darkness blanketing the planet. But the ones controlling those dragons like chess pieces to control Earth is the Committee, a passive and private organization, controlling this star form behind the scenes. The 24th of October, 1845 was the first day that aliens and humans had contact, and also the launch of the United Nations. The committee waited ages for Earthlings to establish the UN. The committee requested the leaders of the Earthlings to take in large amounts of alien immigrants from other dimensions. In exchange for accepting these immigrants, they readjusted the concentration of mana on Earth, as Kathy recalls from a textbook. Thanks to readjustment of mana concentration, ability users started to pop out of the human population, using magic and controlling to advance the state of Earth or so. Henry listens and comes to a conclusion that they must have left out bad parts in the textbook. They arrive at the office where they meet Mr. Lakefield and Oliver. The first target of group immigrations was the elves. The humans welcomed the elves due to their looks and their knowledge of magic. But the path that was opened while they were crossing over was not only used for its intended purpose. The other dimension's criminals started using this faraway dimension Earth as a getaway, or thinking it as an untouched gold mine and started coming over. Henry tells Kathy she can clock out if she has nothing left to do. To his surprise, she says she'd like to hear more of his stories over tea. Henry agrees but gently tells her to just have one cup and go. They talk briefly with Henry reminding her to head home afterward. Suddenly there's a knock at the door, which is odd. Henry isn't expecting anyone. When he opens it, he realizes what the fortune teller meant. It's been almost 100 years since he last saw this visitor. Bradley from the American branch. Henry makes tea for everyone, and Kathy greets the guest, curious about his visit. Bradley is an old colleague Henry met during his past war. The guest jokingly calls Henry cold-hearted for never reaching out, not even calling him by name. Then Bradley asks if Henry's she has ever called him. The hero is confused, but Bradley insists that she must have contacted him. That's weird, since there's no way she wouldn't have contacted Henry. Our character cannot understand who the guy is talking about. And Bradley finally mentions Dell. Henry goes silent, nervously asking why she'd call him. His hands even start to shake. Dell, it turns out, was once Henry's wife. Henry and Bradley go to the tree bar nearby to have more private conversation. Bradley says that a whiskey served by a moving tree is interesting. Then he wets his throat a bit before they start talking. But as soon as he takes a sip, he starts severely coughing, asking why Henry ordered such a strong drink. The hero laughs, saying it's to remind him of the old days and the dimension they once worked in. True, all the drinks there were like this. Strong drinks that you couldn't even differentiate whether it's alcohol or ethanol. Henry nudges him to get to the point now that they're settled. For that purpose, the hero sets a barrier that isolates sound. Henry asks what brings a U.S. agent like Bradley to Korea. Bradley explains he's escorting Princess Vermi from the Galanko dimension. Now that Henry thinks about it, he vaguely recalls hearing this on the radio. But he doesn't understand why the U.S. Bureau is taking care of the escort duty. Henry assumes that the Galanko diplomatic party is coming to Korea. They must be hesitant with just the guards from the Galanko dimension. So the rumor is that they requested help from the Earth's Immigration Bureau. Bradley says that the amount of escorts requested was so ridiculous that just the Korean branch alone wasn't enough. Another rumor suggests this is to pave the way for an 8th immigration group. Henry's surprised, as it's only been 40 years since the last one. However, the physique of Princess Vermi's race is about 3.5 meters average. Then group immigration probably won't go through since they're taller than trolls. If you think about the Earth's infrastructures, it would be hard. That's why there's a rumor going around that the committee is working hard preparing for it. Henry finds it all fascinating, but he's eager to hear about something else entirely. The hero is burning with curiosity about this girl named Dell. Bradley's a bit hazy on the details, but after they wrapped up the last mission in that other dimension, Henry and Bradley were reassigned to Earth, while Dell ended up somewhere else, all on her own. If memory serves, Dell's severance pay was about 500,000 Delant. Bradley has no clue how she managed to pull off that kind of cash. What he does know is that in the dimension where they parted ways, Dell was set free just a couple of days ago, Earth time. Bradley figures she'd come looking for Henry first. Our character can hardly believe it, shocked at the idea that Dell could have already racked up 500,000 Delant. But Bradley admits he's just speculating. Maybe she pulled off some spectacular feat and got a special pardon. When Henry hears spectacular feat, Talisha comes to mind immediately. But that also means Dell has likely regained her memories too. Bradley needles Henry, asking why he's so worried about his ex-wife. After all, it was our hero who liked her enough to marry her. But how is he supposed to know things would turn out like this? Dell seemed normal for the first 80 years. Her love for Henry was so intense she thought killing him was the only way to set him free. But in killing a prisoner like Henry, and as a prisoner herself, she'd only be adding the crime of property damage to her list, which would land her a sole elimination sentence. Dell, being a believer in reincarnation, wouldn't want that. Bradley figures her plan would be to shake off her prisoner status before attempting to kill Henry and then become a prisoner again. Henry can't shake the memory of Dell's parting words in that other dimension. She'd told him to wait for her because she'd be seeing him soon. Bradley suggests a different perspective. Maybe she's dead like Talicia. Henry doesn't say a word. He just wants to get going. The two of them walk out of the bar. Bradley, still on the subject, says that since Talicia's name came up, he wants Henry to know he won't end up like her. Our character gives a short thanks, though his mind is clearly elsewhere as he walks away, trying to make sense of everything. A republic that holds a territory of 36 planets and 145 space stations is Ashtal. That place was ruled by a single dictator for a long time. This person controlled the masses with fear, stomping out any resistance ruthlessly. If Henry had to choose the most infamous example, it would be the tragedy on the industrial planet, at C-21, under this dictator's thumb. When hostility toward the government flared up there, the dictator shut down all food trade to XC-21, a planet 99% dependent on food imports. Starving, the people turned on each other, creating a nightmare where humans hunted humans for survival. Outrage over the XC-21 disaster sparked a coup d'etat among the Republic's people. Cornered by the revolt, the dictator pressed a button with his dying breath. In an instant, over 90% of the Republic's power plants exploded, scattering into space as dust. The advanced Ashtal civilization crumbled, reverting to a primitive state. The people might have broken free of the dictator's grip, but they couldn't escape the suffering that followed, the devastation, the civil wars. People were starving, utterly without food. However, while the people of the planet were crying in despair, the committee sent a team of prisoners to repair the shattered dimension. Those prisoners toiled away, rebuilding Ashtal over the course of 300 years. Henry joined the effort toward the end, and that's where he met Dell. And among those prisoners, the one who achieved the most was Telesia, the revered mother of Ashtal. Hunger had reached such extremes that even parents were willing to eat their own children. One man, in desperation, killed his daughter to lessen the number of mouths to feed. The man sobbed, telling her that she could curse him even in death. It was a horrific scene, and Talisha faced it head-on. This was Earth. In those early days, people were killing each other out of hunger. Talisha herself felt the pull of despair and chaos. She wondered how anyone could survive here, how she could help them. And so, the seed of change began to take root in her heart. When children, full and rosy-cheeked from the food she provided, laughed with joy, or when a healed patient clutched her hands tearfully thanking her, and when families, rescued from bandits, clung to each other, calling out in relief. Because of all this, the people's respect and love for Talisha only grew. And she too came to love them deeply. Henry finds himself reminiscing in his office, mulling over Bradley's words. You're not going to end up like Talisha. She was more than just a fierce warrior or a skilled engineer. Her true strength lay in her extraordinary talent for leadership and politics. She took the reins of the committee, securing resources and personnel from Central Command and jump-starting Ashtal's economy. And when the shield that once guarded the planet from cosmic threats shattered, due to the explosion caused by the dictator, she even showed her good mercenary skills by using the prisoners. When she approved Dell, who tried to sweep away the monsters attacking Ashtal, and tried to totally destroy it to save the refugee evacuation line, at that time, Henry doubted her ability. Yet Talisha's capacity to lead was unmatched, inspiring everyone with her sense of unity and care. The attitude of considering all dimensional beings as family deeply impressed many, and everyone genuinely respected and loved her for that. However, 300 years later, because of her contributions for Ashtal, she became a special amnesty recipient. As the special amnesty recipient, she was immediately released, regardless of the remaining sentence in Dalent. It was the first time seeing someone receiving that. The helping group hoped Talisha wouldn't forget them. Talisha laughed, saying she would never. She said that even if she left Ashtal, she'd always come back, wanting to live out her life there. And with that, she departed. Upon release, memories would come flooding back. But something unexpected happened. Talisha began chanting a spell. She started trembling, shouting. Henry ran to her, asking if she was all right. Tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. Talisha left Ashtal without a backward glance. And a few days later, she ended her life. Although the committee never officially informed what memories Talisha has recovered, or what crimes she committed, and why she became a prisoner, but everyone could guess. That day, Talisha had pleaded to be allowed to leave. Talisha was in a complete despair, running like crazy. The committee granted her request. Her severance was 1.2 million Dalent. Henry stands at over 5 million. Our character silently tells Bradley not to worry. No matter how dark his memories are, when they return, he won't end up like Talisha. Henry promises himself that. But little does Henry know, Dell is already closing in. She won't take long. Rumors are circulating. Princess Vermi's visit might cause a massive migration of the Sultan tribe, likely tied to their production of synthetic gold. Some grumble that those damn aliens are back, wondering if Earth is even fit for humans anymore. Really, it's a monster-infested world, and scraping by is hard enough as it is. Suddenly, people on the streets spot something amazing. They guess it's the direction of Bukansan. There's a colorful light in the sky. Jenkinson, the chairman, asks his colleague if they lost the treasure in Bukansan's B-39 area. Blair says that the culprit left no traces, and the situation is impossible to trace, even with the abilities of a fairy. The chairman, Jenkinson, seems really mad that Blair and Lalisa even start trembling. Irritated, Jenkinson asks if they know why he's come directly to the committee headquarters and has been struggling, wrapping his head around it for days. It was because of the items inside that warehouse. And now Blair and Lalisa have let them slip. Jenkinson spends $10 billion for Lalisa Andreeva's sake. He didn't think it was a waste until now. She'd proudly claimed she had top skills in spirit world exploration. However, it's difficult to control the urge to disregard the advice of the doctor right now. The doctor advised Jenkinson to stop protein intake to live longer. But if he ate meat again, he thinks fairy meat would make a fine meal. Lalisa, now in tears, promises never to slip up again. Now it's Blair Campbell's turn. Elves are known for sticking to their boundaries, but Jenkinson had hoped she'd surpass them. However, even in such a situation, the chairman didn't contact him in an elvish manner, even though he is the most helpful ally in Jenkinson's absence. If Blair can't surpass the limits of her race, there's no reason for the chairman to stay with her any longer. He may not know the thieves' motives, but they certainly are trying to escape the Earth as quickly as possible. Jenkinson will immediately inform the committee and shut down every dimensional terminal on Earth. The chairman orders Blair to contact him and tell him that all the conditions will be met. Jenkinson says to do it right after they're done talking. This is a real pain in the ass. The chairman didn't want to put any more debt on Henry than this. Bram tells the hero about the road control. Henry wonders who came up with such a ridiculous idea in the first place. Even though Princess Vermi is impressive, there's no reason for her to control all of Seoul. Bram says they made her movements vague on purpose to avoid detection. Bram asks Henry why he's playing Baduk like that. The hero just tells the orc not to waste time and to hurry up. Henry hopes Bram won't spend the whole day playing Baduk instead of catching the criminal, even though he's good at it. Given Henry's age, he must have lived way longer than Bram, yet he still loses every time. Bram collects his winnings and heads to the fridge to grab more beer. As he approaches the kitchen, he spots a cloud of foul-smelling black smoke, and Kathy, right in the middle of it, wielding a frying pan. Bram can hardly bear to look. He suggests Henry lend that pan to Soren. The hero comments that even if he dies after eating Kathy's cooking, it still wouldn't be worth it. That frying pan has turned into an absolute nightmare. They say prolonged exposure to such things could contaminate the mind. Henry tells Bram to stop talking and focus on Baduk. Suddenly, someone calls Henry. He's puzzled as to why she's here at this hour. A mischievous elf has gotten herself into trouble. Henry arrives in Zone B39 with Blair and Lalisa. Unfortunately, he didn't see anything firsthand either. Even a fairy who can cross into the spirit world can't detect any traces. Lalisa is horrified to think there's really no way. Henry asks if they tried any methods other than exploring the spirit world. Blair says the fire was only recently put out, so she didn't have time for much. She called in someone with psychometric abilities, but it didn't help. The hero says that residual thoughts can be erased easily with magic, especially with large-scale spells like this. Blair agrees and says she's investigating through spirits. They mobilized psychokinetic responders, but even they shook their heads. Looking at the exorcism barrier, it seems spirits couldn't even come close to this area. If there were any, they'd have been swept away by yesterday's incantation. Last night, a forest fire burned for 6 hours on Bukansan. It might be another territorial squabble among Jenkinson's children, but it turned out to be a ritual aiming to unleash a massive spell. A spell strong enough to shatter an elder dragon's barrier, affecting both the material and spiritual realms to the extent of erasing every trace. Lalisa suggests asking the druids for help. Since they're connected to mountain animals, they might have seen something. Henry says all surviving animals would flee in such a situation, and even if Lalisa calls them, they won't come. But wait, the surviving animals have fled far away and there is none around. What if there are still spirits of animals that perished here? Henry cuts his hand with a knife to use dark magic. He summons the spirit of a deer, a soul lingering with strong resentment from a painful death. Even if a spell powerful enough to wipe out residual thoughts and spirits was used, they would still remember the moment of death. That's unforgettable. People in white robes finish the final installation. All preparations are complete. Their goal is to drive these despicable aliens off Earth. The leader calls on his brothers to act for a world that belongs to humans alone. There's a tattoo shop in Central Seoul. While working, the tattoo artist, Aiden, listens to a speech about keeping Earth human only. His client winces in pain and finally leaves with the tattoo done. The troll came here for a design that's hard to find elsewhere. The client asks Aiden if he'll take responsibility if the tattoo doesn't heal well. Aiden tells the troll to avoid drinking, smoking, and saunas for a week, and to use the ointment he gave. The troll snorts, agreeing, and leaves. Aiden can't stand these pig-headed trolls. A policeman shouts harshly at goblins on the street, telling them to hurry up and get on the bus. Bram approaches and asks the officer what he's doing. The man complains that the goblins don't understand him. The officer starts to say goblins are like low-skilled kids, but Bram cuts him off, advising him to watch his words. Bram calmly reassures the goblins, telling them it's nothing scary and won't hurt. They can take the bus to the camp, rest, and get free food. So Bram guides them all onto the bus, though it's all because of Princess Vermi. Yesterday, they controlled traffic from the terminal to the hotel. Now they're organizing the outskirts. It's getting more intense as the day goes on. Suddenly, Henry calls Bram. The hero asks if the orc is busy. Bram says he's not if Henry wants to talk. Our character recalls their last visit to the orc community, when they caught that troublemaker from the society. Among the troublemakers, there was one guy with tons of tattoos. His name is Jeremy Davis. Bram asks if there's a problem with him. But it's not Jeremy that's the issue. It's his tattoo. Henry asks Bram to find out where he got it. The inspector agrees but asks if something's wrong with the tattoo. Henry explains it's in an ancient language and means, "Those fucking orcs pig bastards should stop wasting oxygen and just fucking die." Aiden has an important day and wonders if he should close his shop early. He decides to and notices those pesky crows tearing into the trash again. It really puts a damper on Aiden's mood. He listens to more talk about shameless foreign immigrants taking opportunities from everyday humans. These aliens might have somewhere to go back to, but for humans, Earth is it. If they lose this place, they'll have nowhere to return to. Henry arrives in the area where Aiden's store is. So far, the brothers of the association have spread throughout society, and now the opponents of foreigners are working on this propaganda. They're especially targeting two species they see as the biggest threats, and those are the dragons and the orcs. The association claims dragons are a hidden menace controlling everything. People need to fight back and drive them out. And orcs, filthy piglets who breed endlessly, creating a population crisis, they're seen as a biological disaster. Recently, though, the association heard of a new species seen as equally threatening. When the leader learned about the 8th wave of immigration, he couldn't hide his shock. He asks if everyone knows the biological traits of this species, the shutan. This race lays eggs nearly every day with more than 10 at a time. They can grow up to 3.5 meters tall as adults. And what if they behave like orcs? What if they are just as strong as orcs and will commit a crime everywhere? That's why the association will use everything it can at the organization's disposal and make sure to stop the immigration that the committee is planning. And for the first step, there's one alien they must get their hands on. Bradley arrives at the hotel where Olga, the interpreter, greets him. She looks forward to his kind cooperation during the stay. Bradley asks about Princess Vermi's condition. At first, Olga stays silent, but then honestly tells that the princess's condition is very anxious right now. Bradley likely knows about the tension between the committee, the Korean government, and Galanko's UK over security issues. But they're grateful to have someone as skilled as Bradley as head of security. However, Bradley says the princess still believes security is insufficient. Olga asks him not to judge her too harshly. Enough small talk. Princess Vermi awaits in the next room. Olga knocks on the door and walks in. As soon as the princess notices them, she starts roaring at all her strength, splashing with saliva. She resembles a huge crocodile. Olga explains that Vermi expresses her delight in meeting Bradley and hopes that the two of them will work well together in the future. In the middle of the night, Aiden's entrance exam is already reaching the end. If he passes it, he can become one of the brothers. But first, one of the brothers wants a word. He shows a few photos. These are about the tattoos Aiden's carved on the orcs. The tattoos mix ancient orc language with symbols for slave, genitals, pig, stink, excrement, etc. Obviously, the orcs have no way of knowing. Back in their world, orcs were mostly illiterate, with a 99% illiteracy rate. So Satan asks if there is a problem with becoming a brother because of this. Honestly, there was an opinion that said that the brothers might be caught, and there might be someone else who recognizes the tattoos like him. However, everyone ultimately agreed that it's a very satisfying aspect. So the man just warns Aiden to avoid leaving evidence and to consider relocating his shop. The brothers can help him to get the equipment that he needs. Now Aiden is ready for the final step to join the brothers. When he enters the basement, he sees an orc tied up. One of the brothers hands Aiden a knife so he can prove his sense of justice and rage. Aiden steels himself, telling himself he can do it, that it's just like slaughtering a pig. He's had some close calls. Almost got killed by those orcs a few times. The brothers tell him not to overthink it and just return the pain the orcs dealt Aiden. In that moment, he finally decides to strike the orc. But just like that, Aiden feels his arms getting sliced. Someone's approaching the basement, making the brothers immediately anxious. One of the leaders didn't even notice the slightest breach in the security layer. He has no clue who's coming, but it seems the intruders are high-level wizards. He warns that the intruder seems to know them well and might bring serious consequences for crossing the brothers. And then Henry walks in, wondering what might happen then. Just a little while earlier, Blair asked our character for help. She feels she can't trust anyone right now. Jenkinson's temper seems to have cooled off, especially seeing his subordinates still alive. Even a dragon can't beat time. Henry questions what kind of people these brothers are if even the elders couldn't stop them. Blair would just like to ask Henry to find their trace. She hopes he can find it before the chairman comes back to Earth in around a week. Blair mentions that while the Dimensional Leap Terminal might be locked down today, they can't let the brothers have a whole week to erase any evidence. Henry is surprised. He hadn't heard anything about the terminal being shut down. Solidarity for human rights is something he caught earlier from the special buses on the street. From the spirits' memories, Henry learns they called each other brothers. Based on their actions, Henry is convinced they're tied to the Solidarity for Human Rights group. After a failed dragon-led operation, this group went global and set up an organization, making its higher-ups nearly impossible to trace. Henry gets the assignment, but he admits it won't be an easy one. Blair and Lalisa are thrilled he's on board, though he does expect some compensation. Blair's ready. She hands him a blank check he can fill in with Earth currency or Dalent. Our character is surprised by how much Jenkinson trusts him. Henry promises to contact them if he finds something. He doesn't know about the organization's higher-ups, but there's one guy who caught his eye. He decides to track this guy down and search for the leaders. And this way, Henry successfully caught them red-handed now. He certainly will be able to write more zeros on the blank check. Using his magic, he frees the orc and tells him to go. The brothers are baffled, unable to grasp what spell he just used, or how it's even possible. Henry seems like a master-level mage to them, and the leader knows they wouldn't stand a chance, even if they attacked together. Still, they're not giving up. The leader insists Henry will regret crossing them. The brothers secretly get the magic shield from the Witch Alliance. As long as they have it, they can repel the spell back to the caster. But their victory is short-lived as one of them is killed right away. Henry says he needs only one mouth to get a confession. Looks like the Witch Cooperative's magic barrier has been broken. The brothers might be able to beat it if it's not a dragon, but they're not so sure now. Meanwhile, Olga instructs that the princess eats 20 kilograms of raw meat per meal, 6 times a day. She tells Vermi to have Agent Bradley perform the poison inspection, and Olga also notes that the princess will be staying at the hotel for a few days to recover from dimensional motion sickness. And one more important thing. Once a day, when the princess is producing eggs, there should be no one within 10 meters of her. This is when Vermi becomes psychologically unstable, so Bradley must pay close attention. Due to the time difference, the schedule might be a bit unpredictable. Bradley knows that female shutens lay unfertilized eggs if they don't have a mate, and those eggshells are processed into a highly ductile and malleable metal. In other words, this is essentially a sacred ritual that produces gold. Olga checks if Bradley understands everything. Back to Henry. One of the brothers tells the leader he'll buy him some time. The ultimate black magic requires sacrificing the caster's own pain and life force. The brothers determined to get them out of this, even if it costs him his lifespan. The most powerful black magic is still self-sacrifice in its original form. The will to escape the crisis, even if it means cutting your own lifespan. The brother's gonna use these cursed flakes made of his flesh and blood. Then Henry mutters a spell, setting the brother's body ablaze. The others wonder what Henry has done. Just as the brother was about to breathe fire, Henry cursed him to make him even more flammable. The brother, horrified by this monster, realizes he bought his comrades some time. The man completes his ultimate spell, laughing at Henry's supposed knowledge as a wizard. A shadow monster materializes, an overwhelming presence that can tear through both material and spiritual realms. But Henry knows the brother's greatest fear is dragons, so he transforms into a terrifying beast himself. Now he's ready for a real conversation. A few hours later, one of the brothers wakes up, bound in a barn. The man asks why the master of the Oslo school is opposing the Human Rights Alliance. Henry is clueless. Theo Christensen, a criminal pursued by 26 governments and 8 elders, is the master of Oslo school and a notorious black wizard. It seems the guy's mistaken Henry for Theo, but Henry's content to let him think that. His happy bug ensures it. But even the happy bug fails here. These brothers are way out of his league. The man tells Henry to stop wasting time and just kill him. He may be insignificant compared to Henry, but he's also a black wizard. Even torture won't be able to open his mouth. The hero warns he'll use a kind of torture that will break him. A simple worm in his brain would have made for a quicker, cleaner death. The guy laughs, saying there's no way he'll talk, no matter how much Henry bluffs. The hero says that he met a certain dragon recently. A gentleman who was close to 1,000 years old tried to escape to another world while being chased. But he died because he was off by a day, just a day. That's why Henry thought he was the most pitiful man in the world. But it looks like the guy will be the most pitiful person starting from today. The man's face twists in unease. Henry pulls out his knife, promising to make him regret being born. After the case is done, the hero calls Blair. He says that unfortunately he was unable to obtain any information about the B-39 vault case. Given the organization's nature, Henry only knows about the operations he's directly involved in. Still, today's work wasn't for nothing. The Human Rights Alliance is about to stir up major trouble. He's not sure if it'll be a kidnapping or an assassination, but their target is Princess Vermi. The goal: prevent the 8th mass migration. The important thing is that this operation will involve some major players. Among them, there will definitely be the mastermind behind the vault robbery. Blair understands, but asks if she can add one more thing to the request. Things keep escalating, but Henry decides he'll bill them for all his work. If it's not enough, he'll just borrow what's needed to cover costs. Henry arrives at the hotel and meets Olga. She was surprised that the immigration office suddenly increased the security personnel. As the top-rated agent in the Korean immigration office, the princess seems impressed with Henry. Their plan is to lure the alliance in by using the princess as bait, all while keeping her perfectly safe. It seems that Jenkinson and Blair are taking a dangerous outing. Whether Henry succeeds or fails, he'll get paid for the work, so he won't lose anything. Even if this case causes political turmoil, the committee will protect Henry, since prisoners are a valuable asset. Olga knocks on the princess's door, announcing the arrival of the new security team member. When they enter, Bradley's face changes. He's taken aback. Henry introduces himself, and Verdi starts to sweat. She seems quite taken with him. There's a faint heartbeat sound in the room, accompanied by a strong pheromone scent. Verdi's attraction to Henry catches him by surprise. Suddenly, the princess stands, yelling something. Bradley asks what Verdi said. Olga explains she's moving into production mode. Bradley's shocked since she already did it this morning. But suddenly, Verdi's body received a new signal. Henry's surprised. Seems like scorpions these days are laying eggs even when the sun's at its peak. Something's different from what he remembers. Bradley never knew that it was Henry, the agent, who would support him. Henry tells Olga that they will talk privately for a moment and come back. Our character then briefs Bradley on the situation with the Human Rights Alliance. The guy had a suspicion, but didn't expect them to move so specifically like this. If this continues, the situation will change. That's why they sent someone like Henry, and he confirms it's a secret from the princess. Bradley wonders if he should review the contract terms under these circumstances, but an earthquake suddenly hits. Bradley brushes it off, saying it's just something the princess concocted. Henry thinks he's heard something like this before, like the screams he heard before coming to Earth. Bradley says it looks like unbearable pain. The women of Sultan refer to their daily experience as the curse of nature. Henry's surprised this happens every day. He wonders if it's always been like this, though it doesn't seem that way. But at that moment, the hero is more shocked that he knows all this. Bradley starts yelling at Henry, asking if he's even listening. Then they continue talking about work, nothing out of the ordinary. The next day, the hotel staff prepares for the princess's arrival. Everyone notices an incredible shine as Vermi steps out. She clearly put thought into her appearance. There's no event today. She probably has business meetings lined up. Yet it seems Vermi is searching for someone. When she finally spots Henry, her cheeks turn red and her eyes light up. Olga approaches the group, saying she has something to share. Suddenly, they decide to travel by vehicle instead of teleporting. Henry says it was wise to prepare a dedicated vehicle for the Sultan. Olga says the princess changed her mind and wants to stroll around the town. Bradley asks if it's true that the princess came for the mass migration, perhaps to see the immigration dimension firsthand. Olga confirms that they've divided the diplomatic and security teams and arranged the vehicles. Bradley laughs, mentioning that he, Henry, and the interpreter will ride with the princess. Olga conveys this to Vermi, who smiles instantly, saying something in response. Olga turns to the agents, asking which of them is the stronger. Naturally, it's Henry, so he'll be riding with the princess. Vermi said she doesn't like it when things are frustrating, mentioning that she wants to minimize the number of people riding together. So, Olga asks Bradley to use another vehicle. Vermi can't stop looking at Henry. Suddenly, the ground starts trembling. Worried, Olga asks the princess if anything is bothering her. Judging by Olga's expression, it seems the princess said something shocking. Olga assures she's only interpreting the princess's words and will forget everything afterward. Olga reassures Henry that their conversation will remain private. Henry feels relieved, but he can't predict what Vermi will say next. Olga confirms that whatever is discussed between Henry and the princess will stay confidential. Yet things feel increasingly tense. Money is at the root of all issues, but Henry can't do much. He just has to endure the princess's presence. He might need to draw boundaries if she oversteps. Vermi asks the hero's name and if he has ever been to the Galanko dimension. Unfortunately, Henry has never been there and asks what it's like. The princess says it's a beautiful place. Silvery blue night skies under two moons, a gentle breeze over swamps with aquatic plants and amphibians, and four-winged birds drunk on floral scents sing beautifully in the spring. It's a beautiful land, Vermi calls her homeland. The princess heard Henry is a quarter elf born and raised on Earth and asks his age. The hero says he was born in 1945, a fabricated identity from the committee. Vermi is shocked he's that young, not even close to half her age. She asks how long a quarter elf typically lives, but Henry's uncertain. Then the princess asks if Henry has any thoughts of living in any other dimensions aside from Earth. Henry feels he should set boundaries, but the princess apologizes first. She hopes he will forget what she just said. It's just the first time Vermi saw such a beautiful being since she was born. The princess has never been in the same place with a foreign male before, which is a given for a modest shootin' lady. Since it's like that, many shootin' ladies are confused by their emotions. Vermi asks Henry to see her behavior as mere confusion. She apologizes if he was uncomfortable with her emotional confusion. Henry says it's fine. There must be a culture of loyalty among shootin' women. He asks if this is a long-standing tradition. Vermi never really thought about that, but since the history of the Shutan race was mostly destroyed during the race wars, it would be a tradition dating back at least 800 years. But something seems off. From what Henry studied about the Galanko dimension, the information about the race wars doesn't match up. But always laying infertile eggs, laying eggs in broad daylight, even spreading pheromones to a different race like Henry, it's all different from the information he was given. The prisoner like Henry is under partial memory deletion. It can mean that he still has some memories that weren't deleted from 800 years ago. Thinking about it, it was said that the Galanko dimension is also a united kingdom made up of a variety races like Earth. Shutan, having power much greater than other races, was forced to fight against all the other races alone due to that. In the end, the Shutans lost these race wars, resulting in the Shutans' political power being pushed to the very bottom within the Galanko dimension. Perhaps this explains the situation. Henry tells Princess that many of the Earth's residents think that Shutan's visit this time is to prepare for the mass immigration. Vermi heard the rumors, but it's a hearsay resulting in not knowing Shutans well. The weather and the infrastructure of Earth is far from accommodating for them. That's true, even just looking at this car. This small star doesn't have the capacity to take Shutans in. Even if it were to prepare, it would take many years and resources. Then Vermi's really here for business. Yeah, if the princess is able to take care of this issue well, she might get the chance to lay a fertile egg, surpassing the other princesses. According to Henry's memories, once a Shutan lays a fertile egg, they stop ovulating for decades. It can be that they are trying to free themselves from the curse of nature. Bradley contacts Henry saying they're nearing Gongduk Station and asking for a precise location. Vermi tells him to inform everyone. They're heading to the Korean pension fund. This may be out of line, but Henry asks if the princess has an appointment, because she can't just show up like this. But Vermi says it's intended, surprising them as part of her plan. The fund's employees get really anxious about the princess's visit. They are given only 5 minutes for her arrival. Recovery of unfulfilled long-term debts is the real reason why Vermi came to Earth. The princess's surprise visit catches the fund off guard. The employees prepare to greet her. The princess finally arrives surrounded by security. From the start, the Gongduk Station area was not even close to the government's estimated path that the princess would take. Those people wouldn't even dare to imagine that a princess is here to collect debts. Vermi approaches the workers, growling at them for their boss to come out. The CEO of the company is expected soon. According to the time, he should be arriving. Suddenly, our characters hear that the CEO must be here. The chairman enters, apologizing to the princess for keeping her waiting. Henry's surprised to see Oh Man-sik as the CEO of the Korean pension fund. Later, Olga checks the security and asks the agents to wait outside. Our character knew that the alchemy company was in a difficult position due to the biosynthetic gold. But to think Oh Man-sik was one of the debtors of the princess. Given that she leads the biosynthetic gold market, why would he be in debt to a competitor? Oh Man-sik may be old, but he's not someone who would make these kinds of mistakes. Could it be he didn't know his creditor was the princess? Or was the debt transferred? Henry's not assigned to this work. But he can just say it's not work, but a personal favor. Thinking of Henry's old relationship with Oh Man-sik, the hero will make an exception and look into the issue. They say coincidences often lead to inevitability. Henry contacts Kathy, asking her to leak info about the pension fund to the government and report their response. Kathy should pick up on what to do with just this. The government should know that it's better to help instead of idly watching the aliens take over a Korean company. It sort of feels like betraying the escort target, but Oh Man-sik greets the princess, kissing her hand. With the formalities out of the way, she'll listen to his plans to pay his debt. For him, it was a preposition that was too sweet to refuse. Due to the dropping prices of gold, while many pension funds were going under, Omancic, with an honest belief in himself, did not stop the processing of gold. They said that if he put his all into it, he would overcome these dangers and rise again. However, when Omancic started to realize that he couldn't hold out any longer, they came to find him. They gave him a preposition he couldn't refuse. MSF, mana-sensitive filter, a key material in synthetic gold production. That is 100% reliant upon imports from other dimensions. Seeing through Omancic's predicament, they promised to supply the MSF at an unimaginably low price. But the old man said that they didn't even have any money to spend then. That moment, they offered to use bonds. With this, Omancic would be able to pay it off once the situation gets better. But the company's situation got worse as the time passed, and they would offer more MSF in return for more bonds. Then one day, Omancic's office was contacted, saying their debt was sold off to a third party. The new creditor's name was Vermi, the Shutan's princess. Then the chairman explains the plan. Now she starts to growl that this is the first time she's listened to such a nonsensical debt repayment plan. Vermi says that the entire plan is littered with falsified numbers. There is not a single statement that she can trust. In general, she can't trust Omancic. She says either he pays back his debt in its entirety at this very moment, or accepts their conditions. Olga shows Omancic their list of conditions. It's outrageous that they just say to hand over his company. He can't understand why a Shutan like Vermi is interested in a magic alchemy corporation. The princess just calmly says that it's none of his concern. The company Omancic will be yielding his shares to is a corporation legally established on Earth. Vermi confirmed with lawyers from both dimensions that there will be no legal issues. The princess asks if Omancic will declare bankruptcy or transfer his shares. If he chooses the latter, she will guarantee his employment. There's no room for him to flee. The man asks to give him some time to consider this. Vermi says she will come again tomorrow at this time. Later, while resting, the princess tells Olga she's a bit hungry. Though it is modest, the woman has prepared a box meal. As Vermi starts to eat, Henry senses the stench of raw meat. But there's something else mixed in with it. Furthermore, the source of this scent isn't the meat, it's the princess. But these aren't the Shutan's pheromones. Right. This is similar to the pheromones insects use to communicate. But why is it suddenly emitting from a Shutan's body? It's similar, but definitely different. Henry wonders if it is an elaborately chemical compound, which changes after interacting with oxygen. No. Producing such a dramatic change with just oxygen is impossible. That's right, the compound must have gotten into the princess's body and changed after coming into contact with Sultan's internal compounds. Henry immediately rushes to the princess. However, she doesn't even listen to him, waiting for him to kiss her. Grimacing, Henry quickly steps back. The hero asks Olga to tell the princess to open her mouth. The woman approaches Vermi, rehearsing Henry's words. Meanwhile, there's a bunch of unknown insects on the street. Seems like they are rushing to the princess's vehicle. Henry immediately understands that it was a trap, and then all the bugs bump into the vehicle with huge speed. Committee designated a first-class disaster creature, Manhwa Hornet. Disaster class, the size of a thumb. With an exoskeleton hard enough to be used as a part of a spaceship, it creates a magnetic field by withdrawing its wings and diving at a high speed. It would be comparable to getting hit by a mini spaceship with a plasma engine. The princess vehicle totally collapsed. Henry quickly brings Vermi out of it and flies away with her. But no matter how he defends, the hornets still continue attacking them. Henry doesn't have the time to deal with it one by one. The shell may be hard as steel, but its insides are not. Then the hero decides to blast hornets with fire to a point their insides start to boil. However, the hornets aren't affected at all. Henry seems to find out what's the matter. The hornets' insides are filled with mana, not life force. It's probably the mana of the person that's controlling it. These things are undead with just a shell of the living. Everyone's panicking. Bradley screams to Henry that the target of those insects is the princess. So if they're hunting only Vermi, our character brings her and flies away. He won't be able to fight those things while protecting her. First, he needs to find a place where there's a safe barrier. And Henry's attention immediately comes to his office. By his mental connection, he tells Mr. Lakefield that he's turning on the shield. The elf right away gets the situation and activates the strongest barrier in this building. Finally, they're safe and no hornets can't get through. The elf asks what the princess is yelling this whole time, but Henry's not sure either. Putting this aside, he apologizes for getting Mr. Lakefield involved in this. The elf says they're fine, telling the hero to not mind it too much. Henry put in a backup request to the bureau, so someone that can exorcise these undead should be arriving soon. The hero decides to try to communicate with Vermi through mental waves. He asks if she hears him. Henry tells the princess to calm down for a second. But suddenly she starts yelling with even more intensity. Our character tells her to calm down and listen. He says there should be some words that they both know. Henry asks if there was anyone Vermi got in contact with or touched her today. First, the hero needs to figure out where the chemicals in the princess's body came from. Everything that was to be consumed by the princess was checked, so it shouldn't be the cause. Also, since the hornets didn't attack any other shootings, it shouldn't be an airborne chemical. So it means it's something that only the princess had connected with. Seeing her response, it looks like she understood Henry. He wonders if there's a way for the princess to communicate back to him. And suddenly, Mr. Lakefield asks if the hero needs a translator by any chance. Henry's surprised that the elf is able to do that. However, he's not. The elf asks Oliver to bring that thing from the storage. In that moment, the boy brings out that frying pan. Shocked, Henry says if they knock Vermi out with a frying pan, it'll keep her quiet, but he still has some information he needs to hear from her. Mr. Lakefield just laughs at him and asks what that frying pan was always yapping around. Confused, Henry remembers it just always says some perverted stuff. The elf reminds the hero that this thing has a mental communication feature. And only now the hero remembers that the first time he saw this pan, it said not to worry about communication since it's able to understand through mental connections. The pan asks Henry in what rough way he will handle it today. It's getting exciting just by thinking about it. The hero repeats his question, asking the pan to translate his question just now. The pan says something to the princess that she suddenly starts yelling, so Henry even needs to close his ears. He tells Vermi to calm down, grabbing the pan from her hand. From this touch, the princess' cheeks turn red and she feels shy. Irritated, the hero asks the pan to tell what the princess just said, but it keeps being silent. Then the pan starts to apologize for losing mind for a moment. It tells that the princess is very feisty. Feels like the pan's heart's been lit up a long time. Henry asks if the pan's even going to answer, but this bastard keeps talking about some pervert stuff. Our character will give it 3 minutes to get the answers to his questions from the princess. If it doesn't, Henry will leave the pan in the corner of the storage room forever. The pan is extremely horrified. Looking on the phone, Kathy sure sent a lot of messages. The girl comes to the room, saying it would be nice if Henry could let her know that he's alive. The hero excuses that he wasn't in a situation where he could call her. Henry asks if she already looked into the Korean pension fund. Kathy nods, but it doesn't look like the government aid would be easy. The government doesn't seem to like this company so much, paying fines for the same problems every year, not complying with the corrective actions order. So the government doesn't want to help them. Kathy asks if Henry knows the race-based employment quota system. Companies that are above a certain size have to hire dwarves, orcs, and trolls at a set ratio, but this company has 97.2% humans, 2.8% elves, but none of other races. Basically, it means this company doesn't have any other races than humans and elves. To think there are still companies like this. Human supremacists rank and discriminate against races other than humans. They take in the elves saying they're nice and useful, but any other race is thrown aside saying they're harmful to humans. With reasons like they're short, they reproduce fast, they're too big, etc. These people rank them based on how helpful or harmful they are to humans. It's a surprise about Omancic. Anyway, Henry returns to the princess, asking if the pan got the answers. Yeah, Vermi said she didn't touch anything weird during today's schedule, but there were contacts with a few humans. First, the master touched her multiple times very lovingly. Henry yells that it wasn't lovingly. And there's one other person that the princess had contact with. Henry gets silent for a while. Seems like he figured it out. Things get worse. Our character contacts Bradley saying he secured the safety of the princess. Henry asks the guy to find out who's behind the attack. Vermi might have gotten attacked by some unknown methods, but it's not something they have no way of tracking, since they have Bradley's ability. It includes the ability to see through things with clairvoyance, and the ability to sense things from the object, added with psychometry, contactless sensing. The light shining from his eyes is not magic that affects the spirit world, but a path made in the physical world by the thousands of bugs that came flying. Those human rights union bastards. The idea of turning Manova hornets into the undead was brilliant. They probably thought they were safe, assuming the caster wouldn't reveal themselves. But they had no idea about Bradley's unique abilities. He'll track them down for sure. If they can trace this back to the higher-ups in the Human Rights Union, Bradley might earn a bounty of up to 5,000 dullants with bonuses. With his pension payment at 10,000, he can cover half of it right away. The total amount of 70,000 for his pension is unusually low compared to others. Even if Bradley eventually regains his memories, he wouldn't become a monster like Talisha, who took her own life, driven to despair by guilt. He feels good about this. Freedom finally seems within reach. Bradley instructs the driver to take the tunnel route to the building. The trace is coming from the underground parking lot. Bradley arrives to find a lone figure standing in the center, cloaked. It's likely the attacker. But no one can understand why he is standing there alone. Maybe he got startled since Bradley and the team arrived faster than expected. No, even then it's too weird. It's as if this person has been waiting for them. Suddenly the figure starts muttering a spell, summoning powerful magic. Bradley immediately tells everyone to scatter, but he's struck first, collapsing to the ground, blood pooling around him. The attacker reveals his face, smiling down at him. Henry remembers the day he visited the witches' cooperative and suspects that Manhwa hired a troll lawyer that day. That's why Henry never saw Manhwa as a human supremacist, but maybe it was all an image-building tactic. That's the reason why he ignored the foreign race employment law hiding his past. Even kissing the hand of a shut-in was to avoid the title of human supremacist. Manhwa was determined to keep foreign companies out to protect the national market. For which belief, even when other companies that were in competition were shutting down, Manhwa kept the alchemy workshop running, even if it was hard. Without his workshop, the nation's top alchemist might have been forced overseas. And as the talents keep leaving for overseas, Korea's gold market would all be taken by the foreign companies. For his people, his country, his workers, Manhwa held on. But all that effort was undermined by a single piece of paper. If the man thinks about it, those bastards that offered MSF, something that heavily relies on foreign imports at such a low cost. They were working with the princess, in on the trap to consume this company. That offer was a ploy by Princess Vermi to take over his business. It was around that time that the Human Rights Union stopped by. They'd been eyeing Mr. Chairman and the Korean Pension Fund, seeing them as allies in the human cause. One of their agents suggested Manhwa show the princess their outrage. One of the reasons for Princess Vermi's trip to Korea includes the issue with Mr. Chairman's debt. Is there any other reason to come to Korea specifically? So the Human Rights Union member asked Manhwa to do a couple minor things. He promised there won't be evidence left, so the chairman didn't have to worry. So Manhwa began cooperating with the Human Rights Union. If all went well, they promised to handle his debt and ensure ongoing support. Manhwa could keep operating the alchemy workshop. Then the gold market of the country would be safe. Suddenly his phone rings. One of his employees reports a serious issue. The Immigration Bureau is on the first floor in the lobby. Henry orders his colleagues to search every corner. Now he's heading to the chairman. Manhwa can't understand how this happened since the guy from the Human Rights Union said there wouldn't be any evidence left. The man's heard stories of the infamous Immigration Bureau agents. Since this is involved with the Human Rights Union, it's obvious how it'll turn out. If Manhwa gets caught, he'll be tortured until he becomes haggard, and even if he survives, he won't be any better from being dead. If it's like that, he'd rather take control of his life and go with ease. Instant poison will immediately kill him as soon as he inhales it. But he doesn't have time to do anything before he immediately finds himself tied up. Manhwa is stunned to see Henry, who mentions the Hornet. Our character says that the Immigration Bureau has successfully purified them. From now on, Manhwa will need to tell them everything he knows about the Human Rights Union. Manhwa tries to invoke his right to remain silent, but Henry tells him he has none. Manhwa should have considered this when he made his choices. In pursuant to the Fourth Amendment of the Korean Constitution, Manhwa's right as a citizen of this country will be partially restricted. Manhwa demands to know why Henry is siding with aliens. Of the 7 mass immigrations, they, humans, at least welcomed elves, but Henry now is choosing to stand with those monsters. They accepted the elves, so Manhwa can't understand why. Despite being 75% human, Henry's 1/4 elf heritage still prompts Manhwa to label him an elf. Not accepting even the slightest mix of foreign races' blood, Manhwa is a human supremacist for sure. Henry asks the chairman if that's why he worked with the Human Rights Union. Their ultimate plan is to get rid of any race other than the humans from Earth. The hero asks if Manhwa knows how miserably they treated other races, but Manhwa sees no wrong in it. The chairman says that no one cares if monsters die or not since they're not even humans. Henry's silent for a while. Finally, our hero tells Manhwa he won't be the one interrogating him. However, Henry believes it would be better for a dragon to interrogate the man instead of him who would take it easy. Through bizarre and painful dragon magic, every buried memory Manhwa has will resurface. Something that Manhwa can't even recollect will be revealed. The surroundings when he met with the Human Rights Union, their voices, clothes, everything will come out. Of course, it would be a painful process. But the chairman won't be able to die until the Bureau gets everything out of him. Besides the ancient dragon, the agents with strong holy power will make sure to keep the man's life intact. At this point, Henry's colleagues take Manhwa away. Then he calls Blair to ask what's going on. She tells him about the tragic scene in the parking lot, and Henry rushes over. Henry inquires about something he'd asked Blair to investigate. Blair reports that Bradley's soul has already departed, and they were unable to find it. The committee uses a miraculous magic that sends the prisoner's soul to another body. but it takes much time and resources to use such magic. So for a soul that's left the body, even they won't be able to find it, meaning Bradley is dead. And instead of his head, there's a bouquet of flowers. Someone clearly left this bouquet as a message for Henry. The spirit world bears traces as if someone intentionally wanted Henry to see them. Henry resolves to find this person, prepared to rip him apart when he does. He decides it's time to send Princess Vermi back to her dimension. Though the terminal is closed, they might secure an exception if they talk to Jenkinson. Henry reminds Blair they were planning on using Vermi as a bait to capture the higher-ups of the Human Rights Union. But the current situation is a lot different from what they expected. The Union hired external mercenaries, meaning there's no chance that the higher-ups will show up. So Henry offers to stop this dangerous game of cat and mouse. He tells Blair to get ready to send the princess back as soon as possible while he's safely escorting her. So that Henry won't have to protect the princess any longer, he can focus on killing the bastard with his full power. Meanwhile, in another dimension, a subordinate reports to Jenkinson about the malfunctioning warp. It's remarkable that the warp held up through 5-dimensional jumps, but with just one more left to Earth, it broke down. And to top it off, the repair will take 3 days. Frustration grows. Why did this happen just as Jenkinson decided to step in for Blair? The chairman asks if there are any other warps that have permission to use from the committee. Jenkinson orders to find one. His subordinate has already searched, but there are too many stops if they want to take this warp. They'll be delayed too much at this rate. Suddenly, Jenkinson notices a particular race heading to Earth solo under these circumstances. His subordinate delivers a message from Blair on Earth. Jenkinson really hopes it's some good news this time. Blair contacted the chairman hoping that he would urgently approve the request. Then she tells Jenkinson about it in more detail. Soon Blair rushes to Henry, saying that it's done and she got the permission. The chairman directly contacted the committee. Blair says they can take off as long as it's one of the dimensional warps the princess used. Then Henry instructs her to get moving immediately. He sends a message to all the magicians deployed for this plan, saying that currently Princess Vermi and the escorts from Shutan will be escorted with teleportation. And the destination is the international airport in Yongjiangdo. Later, Vermi converses with the enchanted frying pan. The mental connection is a type of translation Balhua, principle of reading the speaker's verbalized surface consciousness. In other words, limited mind reading. There wasn't even any explanation like that in the manual, and it's said that most of it was destroyed due to a lawsuit. It can be that the pan is the only one left in the universe. Henry wonders who could possibly shove such a rare ability into a frying pan. Our hero met lots of people while living the life of a prisoner for 800 years. And those who had that kind of talent were probably just Bradley alone. If it's a rare ability user like that, he would live well even after being released from prison. But to think Bradley die a dog's death. Suddenly, Vermi approaches Henry with the pan. Maybe she wants to say something. The princess heard that Henry's comrade had died this time. She feels uncomfortable knowing it was due to her, so the princess deeply apologizes. Henry reassures her, reminding her it wasn't her fault. The princess was aware of the rising racial tensions on Earth, but she didn't expect them to lead to such a drastic event. Henry says it's to be expected. Since there were 7 mass immigrations in such a short period, such troubles arising is a given. Vermi understands Galanko might not be as turbulent as Earth, but it has also undergone multiple large-scale migrations over time. And to top it off, they had to go through many race wars. Of course, the race who sacrificed the most were the natives, Shutans. Yeah, Henry heard that the history of race wars was mostly lost. There are some stories that were passed down. Blair apologizes for interrupting and asks if it's all right to speak. A woman explains that they might need to wait a couple more hours to use the dimensional warp, as they must file a report with the committee to avoid suspicion of smuggling. They note that the ship's weight has increased compared to when they entered. Vermi then reveals she purchased some jewels, and Blair reassures her it should be fine, as no life force was detected. Still, it's surprising Vermi bought enough to affect the warp ship, but she does have money to spare. This bodyguard duty will be over in a few more hours. After sending the princess back safely, Henry can handle the bastard who killed Bradley. Suddenly, a terrifying sound shakes the ground. Outside, people are bewildered, covering their ears, only for some to realize their faces are melting. Turns out it's poison. Everyone's panicking, looking for the detoxification scroll. Saves the time to look for this bastard. Henry is determined to tear this enemy to pieces. Now he faces Theo Christensen, a dark magician hunted by 26 countries and 8 elders. The poison and the zombies are just part of the set, since Theo didn't want his meeting with Henry to be interrupted. Affiliated agent magician Carl Hood tells everyone to quickly tear the antidote and move the wounded. The eerie scene shrouded in darkness is perfect for ambushes. Carl notes it's an awful setup for defense. His main weapon is a 20 cannon. The colleague asks if Carl saw the picture of the site. He hasn't, and asks why. The woman has been an agent for a long time but has never seen anything like it. It's enough to make them think that Bradley, who died, is lucky. The rest were tortured to death. The perpetrator must be a dark magician. Damn it, Carl recalls a saying. Cross a dark magician and 3 generations of bad luck will follow. Once dark magicians hold a grudge, they will follow you to the ends of the earth. You can't even wipe them out since they're just like cockroaches. However, the woman is optimistic they'll be safe with Henry, the legendary agent, who's accomplished many missions alongside the Elder Dragon. Military forces attempt to control the zombies, but they're overwhelmed and call in the agents. The soldier contacts the agents, but the phone starts to melt. Carl knows there's only one bridge that leads to Yongjong-do. The thought that everything would be fine if they could defend that place was a mistake. Since mass teleportation isn't possible, to think he would have the zombies cross during low tide. With that, Carl ends his briefing on the current situation. Henry tells Blair that she should take Shootins to the warp ship and leave right away. He'll teleport to the committee himself. Blair tries to intrude, but the hero mentions the emergency warp code. Usually the chairman would have, but since they're in another dimension, he should have left it to Blair as the head secretary. Blair is shocked Henry knows this because it's true. Only the committee can create the dimensional warp, and it requires their authorization. That's why you would need their permission every time it's used. You need to use the permitted warp code to use it. In emergencies without permission, the terminal manager's emergency warp code is necessary. It's something most people don't even know about. Blair wonders who Henry really is. Henry tells that all the agents that are able to move will escort the princess and her servants to the warp ship. After that, he leaves the princess to the head secretary. Vermi laughs. Sure, they'll cross paths again. Theo is probably telling Henry to find him on his own. Our hero will kill that bastard for sure. So Henry immediately sets off to confront Theo. This reminds Theo of the time the hero destroyed his school. Although Henry had the Elder Dragons then, but now it's just him and Theo. The magician aims to tear the parasite who lives off of dragons up with real black magic. But Henry is already ahead, promising that this time he'll be the one to end Theo. The hero cuts his hand for blood to activate most of his power and magic. He smashes all the Theo's zombies, asking if that's all. Theo, unfazed, boasts he developed countless original spells just to kill Henry. He won't let the hero die until he tastes each of them one by one, step by step. Despite thinking he'd defeated Henry, Theo spots his silhouette in the smoke. Our character approaches, asking again if that's all. Theo can tell that something's wrong. None of the original magics that he prepared for this day are working. He thought he'd accounted for every possibility, but to think that even this much dark energy isn't enough. For the past month, Theo's hands didn't even have a chance to scab up the wounds. He's prepared so hard that the cries of the sacrifices are still ringing in his ears. Theo desperately tries to attack, but Henry keeps approaching. The guy is in hysterics. Let's return to the past. Theo Christensen is a name given by his parents, who were devout. Unlike the meaning of his name, God's gift, his high talent in dark magic was like a slap to the god's face. Theo was living somewhere in Europe. On the first glance, it looked like he was helping the orcs by providing them food and work, even letting them in the house. But once inside, they discovered his torture chamber. It wasn't that Theo hated the orcs or the goblins. He just didn't want to be disturbed while researching dark magic, since no one will care, even if orcs or goblins disappear in droves. Some people on the street were proclaiming that even when a group of goblins go missing, the European alliance isn't doing anything. They wouldn't care whether the socially disadvantaged goblins live or die. The man shouted that people can end up in such a position. But the other citizens said that it's nice how the streets are clean after those monster bastards are gone. They pushed and spitted on this man. And one person who watched all this drama was Theo. He thought that it's even good for him. Due to humans like this man, Theo could research dark magic without restraints. A while later, the military found the lab, where Theo did all his research. And the one in charge of this investigation was Henry with 2 elder dragons. They were searching for Theo at the moment, but seeing how many corpses are still fresh inside, Theo might have escaped using many sacrifices to break through the Bureau's entrapment. Jenkinson then said that they have to be satisfied with just getting rid of the School of Oslo. He promised to issue a wanted notice and continued to chase down Theo. The guy was in despair. He didn't think the Bureau would care about some orcs or goblins. It was Theo's mistake to kill too many orcs. As the orcs, who mainly supply the manual labor, disappeared, the problems within the industrial sectors began to rise. Theo was mad that the government started acting now that it was causing a problem for them, but didn't have any interest in the orcs in the first place. Damn hypocrites. The orcs actively discussed that the School of Oslo was destroyed. They heard that the Immigration Bureau and Elder Dragons worked together. But even then, they were unable to capture the leader, Theo Christensen. Everyone hoped Theo would quickly get caught and killed. It was too hard for Theo to face both the Immigration Bureau and the Elder Dragons together. He decided to take them out from the weakest. And first was the agent from the Immigration Bureau, Henry Bell. He's a dark magician like Theo, who betrayed his kind to live like a parasite under the dragons. So Theo was determined to start with him. To get his revenge on Henry, Theo needed a stronger power and more sacrifices. That is why the partnership with the Human Rights Union worked so well, since they both wanted the pain and blood for the monsters. So Theo said he would take care of the Princess Verme's bodyguard, promising to make sure the Union wouldn't be disappointed. As Theo received the request in regards to Princess Verme from the Union, he had no reason to reject it, since the time came for exact revenge on that bastard Henry. Even the red dragon who was covering for the hero isn't on Earth. Theo thanked God for giving him such an opportunity. Now as his plans unravel, Theo screams, asking if Henry understands the extent of his sacrifices. But he can't say more. Henry's blade pierces his chest. Theo can't believe Henry is still alive even after using such powerful dark magic on him. Theo shouts that dark magic is an art which is completed through murder and sacrifice, so it's not supposed to be like Henry uses it by sacrificing himself. Our character should already be dead. Theo laughs, assuming the hero sold his body to the dragon. The guy believes Henry gained such a powerful life force through it. Theo asks if our character can even call himself a real dark magician after that. Henry says that dark magic was originally made to be used like this while cutting his arm. Theo can't believe that is how it's supposed to be. Well, since it's already turned out like this, he'll try the true dark magic out as well. Theo tears his chest apart. Meanwhile, the zombies are starting to break through the barricade. Blair tells everyone to move quickly. The warp ship is just ahead. Carl knows that even if mana depletion is high, there's no other way. He adds fire and spreads magic elements to the bullet, sending the zombies to hell. All the magicians start to celebrate that it's finally over, but Carl tells them to not raise any flags. Unfortunately, they still see movements. The Bureau can't believe the amount of zombies that were brought. Blair tears the antidote scrolls, asking the Shootins if there's anyone with more of these. But they can't understand what she is saying. They're so close to the warp ship, but Blair understands they can't just run through the poisonous fog. She doesn't know what to do. Suddenly, one more antidote scroll appears next to them. Carl shouts that it's his scroll for emergency use. He says he'll be able to hold on for a bit, as he's a troll with high vitality. Carl tells Blair to use that and quickly get out of here. The woman picks up the scroll, thanking the Agent Hood. Blair quickly shows the princess the way. Carl shouts that they won't be able to hold out much longer. He tells everybody to hurry up, but suddenly falls on the ground, having blood flowing from his mouth. Blair is shocked, not knowing how to help Carl. One of Shutan's brings the agent, quickly getting inside the warp ship. Carl has been exposed to too much poison. Even if he is a troll, being exposed to so much poison would be dangerous. But with his innate tendency as a troll to put others first, giving the team his scrolls, Blair says he'll go to the cockpit, so asks Shootins to take care of Carl. If they dawdle any longer, they'll all die a dog's death. They have to get to the Galanko dimension right away. Blair approaches the warp ship's main room but notices an unusual sound. It's a security feature that is embedded into all of Chairman Jenkinson's treasures. A special lock. Blair's sure this sound is coming from one of the containers that holds the treasure of the chairman. It's emitting a low sound on purpose so that the average race won't be able to hear it. But as someone trained directly by the chairman, Blair is able to hear it. Surely it's coming from Jenkinson's treasure. Below here should be the storage area. Blair remembers how she said that they would have to wait a couple more hours until they are able to use dimensional warp. As there are no signs of life, the request should be quickly approved. If it was in normal cases, the committee would look through all that's stored, if it weren't an emergency situation like right now. But Blair can't understand why it is in the princess's warp ship. However, that's not what's important right now. Shuttins resents, asking what Blair is dawdling around for. She shouts that she has to check the storage area, the fact that a treasure of the chairman is here in the ship. Shootins are confused since they can't understand anything. However, Verme is carrying the pan with her. Even if they end up dead by getting caught by the zombies, Blair won't leave until she's able to confirm what's in the storage area. She can't trust the Shootins in this situation. Blair needs to find someone that can help her. Carl would be perfect. But his injuries are too severe, and the other agents already have their hands full keeping the zombies at bay. Blair wonders if there is really no one else, but she notices one person who can help her. Meanwhile, unbelievable things happen during Henry's fight. Theo's magic is crazy. There's an overwhelming difference in power. If it's like this, running away will not be possible. Theo would probably be put through a hellish torture if he were to get caught. He just wanted to forever research dark magic, but as he doesn't like suffering. So even if it's just a little bit more till the end, he aims to make Henry suffer. The fact that he let Theo escape in Europe, the fact that he wasn't able to kill him in one go today, Henry will regret it forever. A few hours prior, something happened in another dimension's terminal. A woman approached Lo, the administrator. She came to get the warp code. The committee probably already approved it. Lo confirmed, saying it was already approved and the code has been issued. He's not sure if the woman knows, but Earth right now has been issued to be on a partial lockdown by the committee. It's easy to go there, but it won't be the same for coming out. The woman won't know when she'll be able to get out of there once she goes in. Lo asks if it's okay. The woman sighs, saying that it's fine. For her, things like that aren't important. Lo assumes something good must have happened for her to be like that and asks to wait a moment. Surprisingly, he finds out this person wasn't a human. He can't understand why this race is going out of their way to transform as a human since it would be really uncomfortable. Anyway, Lo apologizes for the wait and hands the woman the chip with the warp code. Lo assumes it's not his problem and there are all types of creatures in this expansive universe. Suddenly, he stops the woman. Looks like her call sign isn't registered in the target dimension due to the ship she's taking being private instead of commercial. Lo can just put something in as a temporary measure but asks if the woman maybe has a name she prefers to use. And this woman turns out to be Dell, Henry's ex-wife. Regional manager of the Human Rights Union gets informed about the current situation. The mercenaries just said that they've released the poison and zombies at the airport. He said he'll do it himself since the Manhwa Hornets failed. And also the subordinate asks if the manager knows about the storage at Bukan Mountain. The man says that it's already a failed plan and asks if there is something of note. To be honest, the guy was told that Jenkinson stole something from here on the same day the brothers were going through with their plan. That means the forest fire wasn't defensive, but to get through the barrier made by Jenkinson. The manager's stunned. If that's really what happened, why did it have to be when their brothers were there? The timing was too precise to say that it was just a coincidence. The manager wonders if it could be done to have Jenkinson focus on the brothers. The man's furious that some unknown bastards dare to use them. Meanwhile, Verme's threatening Blair with a gun to shut up and go key in the damn code. Verme says she will get a holly in her head if she resists. Blair is surprised that the princess speaks English. But how could that be? The royalties, to keep up appearances, usually use a translator. Blair wonders why Verme learns a language she has no need for. The woman immediately starts doing something on the panel. Verme tells her to hurry up unless she wants holes in her head. Blair is shocked how fluently the princess speaks English. That probably was a lie when the Shootens said they weren't considering mass immigration. Using debt to aim for the alchemy workshop wasn't just to increase their wealth. The real objective was to diversify the gold production process, creating a foothold on Earth where they can settle in. But the committee or the Earth won't be very accepting of their immigration, especially if it's the Gelanko dimension that treats them like livestock. They hold 15% of the GDP, but have weak political power. Alligator that lays golden egg. So the Gelanko dimension will not let them go so easily. But Blair wonders why they stole the chairman's treasure. Their secret plans for immigration will be blown if they were to be caught. The woman has many questions, but she's sure of one thing. It will be over for them if they go to the Gelanko dimension like this. Blair really didn't want to use this, but now isn't the time to be picky. She asked the spirit to help her and quickly inform Henry about the situation here. Meanwhile, our character is struggling with Theo. Things turn into a complete mess. Theo's using his own body and magic power as a sacrifice for a final magic. The black magic became much stronger compared to the magic Theo used when he was alive. The rate in which the Manhwa Hornets are reproducing is much faster than the rate they're being killed. Henry won't have to worry about dying to those things, but if he can't stop them, they will spread to the surrounding cities, causing chaos everywhere. Henry can't stop this alone. Since Jenkinson isn't here, he has to ask another dragon for assistance. But suddenly it seems that some stupid race is using a dimension warp at this time. But Henry doesn't have time to worry about such things. Now he needs to focus on blocking that thing. If the hero wants to do that, it looks like he will have to sacrifice one of his arms at least. Suddenly the sky turns dark purple with plenty of tentacles around. Henry realizes what's the matter. When he first became a prisoner to him who lost all of his past memories, they were the ones to explain his situation and a way to move forward. They, who oversee endless dimensions and races, as well as the prisoners. They are the committee. Now it's one of the founding nobles of the committee, an ancient race Endelion. Henry can't imagine why an Endelion is here in such a far-off dimension. Maybe it perhaps rode that warship over. But why didn't it ride a race-specific warship and ride such a small ship? Endelion absorbs all the Manhwa Hornets. Henry assumes that inside that black hole there could be an abyss. It's the place where even the committee has given up research on. a place where once you go in can never come out of. It's a hell where they throw prisoners who aren't even worth reforming through labor. But the main thing about this black hole is that by marking each and every one of these bugs, it's sucking them up, without causing any harm to the surrounding. Even so, it's ridiculous to open something as dangerous as black hole just like that. Even if they're a noble, they could still be taken away by the committee. He looks like a person that won't be easy to deal with. Henry shouldn't get caught up with him. Suddenly, something flies to him. This turns out to be a weird-looking spirit. It asks Henry to help. The spirit tells the hero about the Princess Vermi. Henry's furious at that damned alligator, so rushes to the warp ship. All the agents are confused by the tentacles in the sky, but continue focusing on taking care of the zombies. They don't even know what happened, but the zombies' mob became dull. The agents can hold out until the princess warps. They'll be done with the warp soon, so people just need to hold on a little longer. Henry returns to everyone, killing all the zombies with just one strike. All the agents sigh in relief that they're saved, but Henry tells them to quickly stop the warship. However, that moment the sky returns to be absolute light and clear. It looks like the Endelian is left, just what is going on, but Henry needs to focus on the warship now. But suddenly a woman asks where he's going in such a hurry. Really, Henry's still the same even after tens of years. Now the hero can meet Dell. She's the last person he expected to see. Dell says she took a warp ship. Now Henry realizes that it was her in that warp ship from before. No, that's not what's important right now. Damn, the princess is about to warp. Henry apologizes to Dell, asking to talk a bit later. That moment she grabs his arm, saying he's too much. They haven't seen each other for so long, so Dell asks why Henry can't focus on her. This is driving him nuts. Henry releases his arm, rushing to the princess's warp ship. Let's worry about Dell later. However, something right away stops Henry. Someone grabbed and tied the warp ship with tentacles. That someone is Dell. She asks if that warp ship is more important to Henry than her. Dell just wonders what is in that ship that he would ignore her like that. 60 seconds remaining until warp. If Vermi can succeed in this, the Shuten tribe will be free. The committee asked Vermi how she felt about the panel Earth on the periphery for the target or exile. She just has to pay the corresponding price. Vermi went to lobby the committee. She had a bad feeling about getting help from them, but to overcome the oppositions of the other races in Galanko Dimension, Vermi had no choice but to get the assistance of the committee. They said that the price is very simple. Princess will just have to, and frequent visits to Earth from now on. And every time she visits, they will use her warp ship to deliver a variety of goods. And the first destination was Earth. Blair is anxious that Agent Henry is still not here yet. Doesn't matter who comes, she's just begging for help. Suddenly, all the system becomes red and the warp is trembling. And all that is done by Dell. She can't believe that ship is more important to Henry than her. Looking at these tentacles, the hero remembers Endelian. Dell admits it was her. Even when she recovered her body and memories, she came wearing these clothes and this body just to come see Henry, for him to remember how she looked when they first met. And now Dell's furious that he ignored her for that damn ship. She starts to shake the warp ship with even more force. Dell just wonders what is inside. Henry begs her to not do this, but she just in one moment cuts the ship in two half that everyone who was inside starts to fall. Dell tells Henry to not worry, everything inside is safe. So now she asks what was so important that he's being so worried. Henry's surprised she didn't kill them right away. This doesn't seem like the Dell he knew. Whatever she is thinking, Henry needs to take care of this situation first. Dell wonders if it's the passengers in this ship or a girl. She assumes that a Shutten isn't Henry's type and the troll can't be either. Blair finally sees the hero. She can't believe he really came. The woman shouts she was waiting for him. It looks like this damn elf is trying to kill herself. Henry shouts to Dell that it's not what it seems. But she says it's okay, and she has no intentions of harming Blair. Dell just wants to greet her and see her face. A huge Endelian eye faces Blair. Henry shouts that it's not that girl and points at the princess. But it's silly to think Dell would believe that. She asks if Henry knows what she had to do to come and see him. And now he's lying to her because of a girl. Dell cries that they swore to live truthfully to each other for a lifetime, and Henry couldn't forget. The hero says he's never lied from the start, and that's a vow they made when they got married. And Dell probably forgot that they're divorced. Then Henry tells Princess Vermi from the dimension of Galanko that she, as the prime suspect in the North Bukansan warehouse raid, under the alias of Elder Dragon Jenkinson, is under arrest. Vermi remembers how her parents told her that the dimension of Galanko was originally their Shuten's domain. All other races are nothing but filthy invaders. Mom told Vermi to never forget about it. The committee bestowed upon Shutan in exchange for welcoming immigrants, technologies to regulate the cycle of merciless conflicts and elixirs to enhance the purity of gold. They should have never accepted from the start. Once the immigrants united to overthrow their Shutan tribe through force, the gifts of the committee turned into curses. The invaders changed the once-a-month ruthless raids to a daily onslaught, and the size of the egg increased by several times. Amidst the daily agony tearing at their souls, the number of Shutan women choosing to end their own lives surged. When you lay an egg, it can stop ovulating for decades, but the invaders went further, blocking all contact between genders. And as a result, the Shutans lost freedom of reproduction and giving birth. Mom told Vermi to never forget that their Shutan tribe was never just a body. They were always meant to be free. In this land on Earth, she once hoped to correct the wrong history and watch Shutan reclaim freedom. But now it seems her hopes have become nothing but futile. Vermi feels guilty towards her mom. When Vermi's arrest is done, Henry approaches Dell. He's sorry for keeping her waiting for so long. He says there were a lot of things to report to the Immigration Bureau. Dell calmly says it's okay. She's really sorry for causing such a commotion too. Henry is surprised to see her to apologize for causing this much chaos since back in the day. When Dell was angry, she would do even worse things. She feels it's just her nature to act on impulse when she's excited. It looks like Dell uses mind reading. She says she should have listened calmly, but instead she knocked out the naive elf. Dell left a small gift out of regret though, but she's not sure if it will be enough to apologize. Dell certainly changed a lot. Henry wonders if it is the influence of recovering memories after her withdrawal. But more importantly is the lineage of Dell lies with the Endelion. At first, Henry thought she came to kill him, but if she wanted him dead, she could have done so long ago. Then he asks why Dell suddenly came to Earth. Dell says there are 3 reasons why she's here. One of them is that she just really wanted to see Henry's face once. Second, she wanted to apologize to him. After decades together, Dell fell into delusion, believing she wanted to kill him. At that moment, she thought only death could free Henry. Now she won't make any more excuses. She's just really sorry. So Dell's been thinking about how to apologize to Henry. This was her final reason for coming to Earth. After a while, our character returns to the office, browsing the internet. This is classified intel from Special Task 47 of the Committee Directive. Secured and provided perfect DNA sample of a species known to be extinct. Dell told earlier that her lineage traces back to the Endelion, the interdimensional aristocracy that forms the committee. Thanks to this, she can access some of the committee's deepest secrets that other races cannot. Though it's not much information, she still can apologize to Henry like this. Even for a noble like Dell, accessing such confidential information about Endelion would not be this easy. Henry wonders what her true identity is. Meanwhile, some spirit contacts Dell saying he's finally found it. No matter how much Dell doesn't want to work, that's not the way. What will she do if he escapes to a distant dimension? Dell understands, saying she'll be there soon, so asked to lift those blockades or else. But that person has already unlocked everything and restored the terminal functions, so Dell needs to come right away to do her job. Now she decides to go, activating the warp ship. She's certain they'll meet again with Henry. Once Benjamin Franklin said that in this world nothing is certain but death and taxes. Henry asks Jenkinson if it isn't a truly heart-wrenching phrase. He has to pay a survival tax every month to avoid being disposed of by the committee. That's a quote worthy of applause. Jenkinson absolutely agrees. So Henry wishes the chairman hurries up and pays the dalent, but Jenkinson remains silent. The chairman explains that this mission will be paid for sure. But he yells that no matter how hard he tries, giving 300,000 dalent is unreasonable. Of course, it's not that he didn't keep his promise, but they know that if an ordinary person like Jenkinson were to give money to someone like Henry, who's a convict, it would incur a special tax. If the chairman were to give him the 300,000 dalent he requested, the special tax would go up to 90%. So Jenkinson has to prepare 3 million dalent, but no matter how much he tries. That moment, Henry interrupts him, saying to come on. Our hero says that he received a reward of 200,000 dalent from the committee for eliminating Theo Christensen this time and securing the terminal. Even the fair compensation is substantial. Jenkinson put Henry through hell over personal matters, even offering him a blank check. So obviously the chairman owes him more than what the committee does. Aside from handing over Michael Clark's treasure to the committee, there must be money involved too. Henry grabs Jenkinson, telling him to stop talking and give him 3 million dalent, including the gift tax right now. As the day goes on, the hero is resting at the office as suddenly Jenkinson contacts him. The chairman says he can't even get a loan of 3 million dalent with his credit. Lesson learned, never give anyone a blank check. Well, Henry had a rough idea. The committee only accepts everything, from terminal usage fees, dividends, and taxes, in the universal currency known as dalent. The committee, armed with various patents including dimensional leap technology, collects dalent under the guise of technology usage fees. loans out the Dallants needed to pay those fees, and even profits from the interest. So Henry asks what they do know. No matter how much Jenkinson thinks about it, a whopping 2.7 million Dallant. Paying that in taxes is insane. They haven't done anything for the chairman, yet they blame him. It's so unfair. Henry asks if Jenkinson is suggesting tax evasion now. The hero can already hear the sound of the special forces from the tax enforcement command coming. Even the echoes of dragons' scream piercing through the sky. Jenkinson is anxious now. He yells that he was just trying to legally reduce some taxes. He decides to lay out his plan first, and Henry listens carefully. This is it. The only way to avoid the tax is to directly receive compensation from the committee. Isn't that what Jenkinson's offering to help with? In conclusion, the offer is to assist with the special mission, just like with Dell. Jenkinson says this is quite a decent plan. Henry agrees, telling him to hurry up and make the deposit. Lately, there have been many incidents, so the earnings are plentiful. Thinking about what's to come ahead, it only gets better. If this pace keeps up, freedom might not be just a dream. Henry thought Bradley would be the next one to be free, but the destiny turned out differently. The hero checks his mail. Other aliens have already known about Bradley's death, so they hope his soul finds redemption. They're also surprised Dell's not dead. Looks like everyone is still managing to survive. But suddenly Henry receives the message from the committee. It's an irregular tax audit pre-notification letter. Investigation target, items subject to reporting and payment obligations under laws related to convicts. It says that failure to cooperate will result in immediate termination. No matter how much Henry thinks about it, he didn't do anything wrong. He wonders what they're scheming. The hero can't understand why it appears after leaving it alone for 500 years. He wonders if he did something wrong, but can't think of anything. Could it be Dell and Jenkinson are helping him? But Henry doubts this can even be caught by the tax law. It's unlike Dell to help without knowing about this kind of thing. Henry wants to ask her, but the surveillance of the committee is on the English communication network, so he can't. The only way to contact first is to call, but he doesn't want to. Damn, Henry's the divorced guy waiting for his ex-wife to call first. This isn't even funny. But suddenly his phone rings and he nervously answers. It is Blair. She says that Princess Vermi wants to talk to him. It seems like because she's a princess from another dimension, the chairman can't just meddle carelessly. Henry guesses he can't torture like they did in the medieval time. By the way, he asks about the investigation on the princess. Blair says that after being pressed for a week, she kept invoking her right to remain silent, but suddenly she told the agent she would make a statement, and the situation became more urgent than Blair thought. The committee has requested judicial transfer and suspect extradition for this case. The committee regarding various treaties with Earth. Henry says that no matter how many days it takes, eventually it will be passed to the committee. From what Blair's gathered, the committee usually takes the princesses away and keeps the investigation results hidden from the Earth. If they send the princess like this without obtaining any information, Earth will just fall victim to the same trick again. To prepare what lies ahead, Blair's counting on Henry. There's no other choice. He'll go right away tomorrow. In the morning, Henry walks out of the office. Damn, that alligator is such a pain. Still, it's best to have a plan for the future. Having a system in place makes it easier for Henry to work too. Suddenly, he gets a message about a change in tax audit schedule due to internal affairs at headquarters. He right away heads to the place. Why the committee just can't be honest and say they're gonna attack Henry? They won't give them time to come up with a plan. Anyway, he enters the lobby to meet with the committee member. It's a huge dark room filled with nothing. The man in a suit greets Henry, saying he's finally come to Earth in human form after such a long time. The man wonders if he should greet Earth's way. He's an investigator for this tax audit, the captain of the Outpost Tax Evasion Tracking Unit 2nd Battalion. The captain tells Henry to cooperate accordingly, otherwise he'll die. So our hero shakes the man's head, asking to take care of him. One more chair appears. The captain offers Henry to sit comfortably. Also, he apologizes for the sudden change in plans. So the captain offers to begin right away. Henry hopes this ends quickly, since he had to reschedule a prior appointment for this sudden change in plans. The captain sighs and decides to skip the small talk in that case. The man says that lately the Dallants in Henry's account have been rapidly increasing. And now the captain kindly asks for an appropriate explanation. Henry says that recently, there have been quite a few big incidents in Korea. And he just dealt with matters as an immigration agent in Korea, so received fair compensation for it. The captain asks if the Korean Immigration Office contracts out its work to a private company. The head of that company is Jenkinson, the dragon Henry's long been acquainted with. The captain asks if Henry has ever been given favorable tasks or engaged in corruption during missions. A while later, the audit is finally over and Henry can be free. Henry told the captain that Jenkinson, entrusting him with a big task, shows the trust in his abilities. For more details, the hero offers to check the reports he's submitted so far. The captain looked thoughtful. He said they would conclude the investigation for today. The agent will call Henry again if any further investigation is needed. Anyway, what a hassle dealing with this legion. Nitpicking over trivial things. Henry wonders if they still do not know what he was actually concerned about. Damn, he needs to quit his job quickly to avoid seeing this mess. At the office, Kathy pulls out the pan, asking what kind of food Henry would like. She heard that his close friend passed away recently, and he looked so down, so she thought she'd cheer him up a bit. The pan asks if Kathy knows his taste in food. First off, Henry loves ancient grains and crops, but he absolutely dislikes bracken ferns. Then the pan asks if there is anything Kathy dislikes. Turns out that the girl finds dealing with a fish a bit challenging. The pan sighs, saying that considering Kathy's ability that makes sense. Kathy is so indignant, asking how the pan knows. Turns out that it's one of its little abilities. The pan can perceive the abilities of the person holding its handle. Kathy wonders if Henry knows about this function. The pan says no, since it's so shy that it's not good at PR. Kathy can't imagine what kind of freak would put these functions on a frying pan. Alright, then the pan offers to quickly make some delicious food. First, they start with stir-frying. The first step is preheating the pan. So it orders Kathy to heat it up with the highest heat setting. A little later, Henry returns home and can't believe his eyes. The table is laden with many different dishes. Mr. Lakefield, Oliver, and Bram are also there. The orc says that all this is made by Kathy. Henry can't believe his ears. Bram tries the food first, exhaling out of satisfaction. Our hero thinks they're messing with him, but everyone's kidding. They say that this was all made with that frying pan. Bram hands Henry over a piece of grilled sirloin, yelling to try it once. The hero is skeptical, but once he tries Kathy's food, he can't stop smiling. It's just a miracle. About this frying pan, they said there was only one left in the world. Henry thinks he should sell it with a premium attached. Collecting retirement funds will be a support. He'll be able to gain freedom faster. Bram asks if he can borrow that frying pan too. Henry hesitates since he was about to sell it right away. But then he remembers that's something he obtained during a mission from Michael Clark's house. Henry wonders if it would be profitable if he takes advantage of that. Yeah, those guys wouldn't let it go easily. Then he decides to postpone selling it for a bit, so gives it to Bram, telling to return later. The next day, Henry arrives at the prison. As promised, he came alone and activated the sound-blocking barrier. Then he asks Vermi, who is sitting in a cell, to tell her a statement. Henry offers to start with the broker who entrusted this case to her. He asks if those bastards claimed they'd help the Alliance Kingdom release the Shutan tribe through the committee. It's a blatant scam no matter how you look at it, but Vermi claims it's not. But Henry says the princess has been deceived. To wield influence in the committee to that extent, you must be a high-ranking elder, almost like an ancient race. Then Vermi says it's even far from a scam, since the broker was from an ancient race. If you're from an ancient race like an elder, it might be possible to lobby the council. Henry asks if the princess is sure about her statement, and she swears there's not a single lie. The day they approached her, she saw it with her own eyes. So, Vermi has seen an ancient race in person. Shocked, Henry asks which race it was. And the princess names Kabetu. Vermi says she also trusted this plan since the broker was of an ancient race. Henry asks if they're the ones who robbed the warehouse. But the princess says they didn't even know the indenting of the goods. They just loaded their goods onto the jump ship. They needed to help them a few more times and they could have been free, but it was a complete failure on the first attempt. Henry asks where Vermi was thinking of robbing next. As she said for a moment, they didn't know any details. The princess probably is just a chess piece. Then digging any further than this would be just a waste of time. Henry says that's it for the interrogation. Vermi's upset she won't ever have to see him anymore. Later, the hero tells Jenkinson about Kabaitu. The chairman can't understand why they are doing this. He can't believe there were such big guys involved. By the way, Henry asks about how his Delant payment case is going. The chairman nervously asks to give him a little more time on that matter. He's looking into it, but he guesses it's just the amount of money. If it's really that difficult, the hero offers Jenkinson to sell his body. Jenkinson becomes furious, saying that no matter what, Henry can't sell a dragon's body. The hero says he meant to just do some labor work. The chairman can't believe Henry wants him to test every goblin's DNA on Earth. The hero confirms, asking what the problem is. Jenkinson says that even in Korea, the majority of goblins have no insurance and have never been to a hospital. What's more, its DNA from the goblins is all over the world. Henry's sure it's a difficult thing, but now it's Jenkinson's problem. If the chairman can't give him money, he just needs to work hard. Henry walks out of the room. This is confidential information from Special Mission Number 47. It is said that a long time ago, goblins, living in a certain dimension, were mixed with the blood of demonic goblins. The descendants of those goblins have dispersed into many dimensions, and one of them is Earth. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack, but it'll be easier if an elder dragon helps. Suddenly, Blair stops Henry, asking to wait for a minute. She apologizes, but asks if he can perhaps give her contact information of the person who had tentacles on her back. The matter is that Dell left Blair a gift and a letter at that time. She said she was sorry for surprising the elf. So Blair opened the gift, and suddenly some magic was activated. It got wrapped around her finger like this. The letter said this would be helpful someday, but no matter what method Blair tried, it wouldn't come off, and honestly, she's scared. Frustrated, Henry tells he'll take a look at contact information for her. So Dell said sorry for being surprised and gave Blair that thing. With a decent artifact like that, she could buy an entire planet. Henry guesses Dell's not an average gold digger. The highest beings wonder what on earth that kid Henry did, and how could he commit a crime worth $500,000. Meanwhile, one of the ancient races is looking at Henry's profile, saying it was a tax investigation directly ordered by one of the representatives. This being contacted the Princess of Endeleon, and its account balance has increased several times compared to before. However, as a result of a detailed analysis of mental waves, it was confirmed that recovery of identity-related memories had not progressed. Even though the memories before the correctional labor punishment cannot be restored, it seems dangerous to use someone like Henry as a prisoner. Kabaitu asks his colleague if he agrees. But his colleague Dots asks what a junior employee would know. They just follow the laws made by the higher-ups. Kabaitu doesn't know much about Henry. It's just that his survival tax is $2 million, and his severance pay is more than $5 million. And it's just that Henry is also the founder of black magic. Now Dots understands why there's such a high price. Kabaitu says that misusing an invention may be a sin, but simply inventing something is not. In any case, since Henry received $5 million severance pay, he must have committed some sort of terrible act. This is why Kabaitu is worried about. It's unlikely, but if Henry gathers $5 million severance pay, they wonder if they really have to release this guy. Not all the evil can be cured. That was the main controversy the committee had discussed when they established the system of re-education through labor. When the technique to temporarily seal the memories of one's body was invented, the committee argued about how they would utilize it. Ultimately, they used the technique on the bad people who existed in various dimensions. Though, of course, they were split between how they would use it on them. They, the Kabaitu, argued to throw the criminals they couldn't use into the abyss. If the criminals were useful, the committee would make them into slaves, and once they mentally broke down, they would dispose of them. But the Endelian argued to seal the criminals' memories and then let them go. If there was no problem after that, they'd have the choice to regain their memories. If they commit another crime, that would mean their souls are evil, and in that case they would take action. But Kabaitu wonders if it is too ideal of an argument. After much dispute, they finally made a compromise. And that led to the current system of re-education through labor. That's how the system was created, but it still has many flaws. Releasing someone as dangerous as Henry Bell is proof of that. On that note, there's something Kabaitu needs Dots to do. It has to send regular reports about Henry from now on. Meanwhile, Kathy and Bram are fighting over the pan at the office. They both are already addicted, so they can't eat home-cooked meals or restaurant meals anymore. In the same room, Henry's watching the TV. At one moment turns around, saying that the guys have a serious problem. Suddenly, Jenkinson contacts Henry. The chairman says it's pretty loud where the hero is. Anyway, our character asks what the matter is. Jenkinson wants to talk about the thing Henry asked him to do. So our character quickly gets up, saying he'll be right there. Kathy and Bram are still fighting. To stop that, Henry says he's going to seal that pan when he comes back. It's just for them to know. While the hero is walking away, the guys try to stop him from the balcony. Anyway, Henry arrives at Jenkinson's office. The chairman says that in order to investigate the goblin DNA the hero asked for, he would need help from the medical world. But as Henry knows, it's hard to influence the Korean medical world, even for Jenkinson. Our character asks if that's because of that woman. Jenkinson says that's right. She a dragon who's his rival and is someone who dominates everything financial and medical related. That would mean he would be stepping into Margaret Taylor's territory. Henry sighs, asking if Jenkinson can't do his job only because of her. But the chairman's not finished yet. He really tried to do this on his own, but Margaret has a strong grip on the medical world. That woman got wind of Jenkinson's actions. To think it's difficult even for Jenkinson. This woman actually contacted him. She said it seemed Jenkinson was very interested in goblins lately. Henry asks if he told him to stop snooping around her territory. But she said that if Henry accepts her request, she would help with the goblin investigation. The hero's surprised. As much as Jenkinson wants to reject it because they're rivals, this would be much easier with her help. So the chairman asks Henry's opinion. Well, Jenkinson is the one who has bad blood with her. But Henry's got nothing against her, so he agrees to meet her for now. A moment later, they're already heading to her office. Henry remembers Jenkinson mentioned that this is something Margaret can't do on her own. For her to request our hero do this as quietly as possible means that it's probably not easy. Well, Henry also needs her help, so it can't be helped. Out of nowhere, our character asks if Jenkinson has been eating meat lately, because it seems like he's eating a lot. The chairman's confused, asking if he has blood on his lips. Henry says it's just that Jenkinson reeks of blood. The hero thought he was that crocodile princess. Our character also thought Jenkinson's doctor told him to quit meat and only consume pure manna if he wants to live long. The chairman's really frustrated right now. He still has his pride as a dragon. He can't tell Henry that he's been gorging himself on meat because he's been stressed lately. Jenkinson hesitates to answer as the driver says they've arrived. The chairman happily offers to end their small talk and go. Jenkinson and Henry are waiting now for Margaret in the lobby of her office. Finally, she's here. The green old woman enters the room, saying it's been a long time. The ancient dragon Margaret asks her little brother how he's been. Many years ago, Margaret was tired of China. The Chinese land, people, and resources have their merits. But the fight between the dragons to possess all that was too horrific. Jenkinson said that the incident in Sichuan province was especially shocking. The ultimate spell of a single ancient dragon fell on top of a nuclear weaponry storage in Sichuan province. This resulted in an explosion that covered a radius of hundreds of kilometers. After that, the explosion and magic mixed with the rage of the spirits who were swept into it and created a radioactive storm belt that had its own consciousness. Moreover, that storm tried to expand its territory across China. Only then did the fight between the dragons stop, and they created a great barrier with magic to protect their respective territories. However, that was only after many dragons had died. It was the same for Margaret's father-in-law, who was 1,000 years too young. Margaret had a favor to ask Jenkinson. She didn't want to live on that land anymore. The chairman said he could permit her to move to Korea on 2 conditions. First, her political position cannot coincide with his. Second, she cannot form a military organization. And that day, Margaret gave Jenkinson her word as a dragon. Now she's happy to see her little brother, but asks if he still walks around like that. Jenkinson doesn't understand what's wrong with his look. Margaret says they're both aging dragons, so she assumes Jenkinson's young human appearance like this is a bit much. She asks if there is a reason he wants to look like a little boy, or it is because he wants to be a little boy. She even assumes he has a Peter Pan complex or something. Jenkinson is a bit stunned by Margaret's words and says it's a friendly appearance for other species. He likes it because it helps him level with other species. Margaret says that being on the same level as those who are governed over isn't a funny joke. Jenkinson's sure that's the case for her since she treats everyone aside from dragons like machinery parts. On that note, the chairman asks if she wasn't the one who didn't even recognize goblins' polymorphs as machinery parts. Margaret says she's been keeping her eye on that species lately. More importantly, they all have the same interests here. She's aware that Henry has been interested in goblins lately. Our character is impressed by how much this woman knows. Then Margaret offers to get started, asking her subordinates to enter. So she says that is going to build a clinic for the city's marginalized people with her own money. The woman says that with the power she has in the medical world, she's going to carry out a relief project for the poor. She'll set up hospital beds for patients who are severely ill and provide physical exams and the necessary vaccinations. This is about as big as a national project. Henry, surprised, asks why she is doing this so suddenly. Margaret says this is all for the interests of society and the public. She asks if the guys know there are many cases in which goblins will spread disease to orcs and humans. The fact that those goblins are in a blind spot as it concerns medical welfare is a great danger to society as a whole. It's a serious social issue, so Margaret must make improvements now. The problem with the medical welfare of the poor is due to the fact that the very insurance companies you have a grip on are too expensive for them. So Henry can't understand why the woman acts like she has a good heart now. She says that it's up to the hero whether they hold hands for this. Margaret knows that he and Jenkinson are interested in goblin DNA. It's very easy for her to collect DNA samples as they vaccinate and examine the poor. If Henry accepts her request, she shall give those DNA samples. It's pretty freaky how much information she has. Regardless, Henry needs her help, so listens to her request. It's fishy no matter how our character thinks about it. Later, Jenkinson and the hero are discussing the situation. The chairman says that Margaret would never do something like a clinic for the marginalized. If they're talking about fishy, the request she made is even more suspicious. Not too long ago, the Margaret Bank headquarters was robbed. Henry was surprised since even most terrorist groups have a hard time robbing the place. That's right. But Margaret says it's a bit difficult to ask the police for help regarding this. It's suspicious that she can't ask the police for help when a bank was robbed. Henry assumes it wasn't just cash that was stolen. Well, the woman says that is and isn't the case. The thing that was stolen is the physical talent article. It's unbelievable. From what Henry knows, if you poorly store a talent, there's a risk that it'll fire off into the netherworld. For that reason, the physical article isn't moved for talent exchanges but is done through data, like how we use online banking instead of physical banking with tangible cash. Henry asks if the council gave Margaret the physical article. She says, of course, it's her money, though of course they were quite stingy with the process. The woman thinks they wanted her to give up since 1 million talents is a lot of money. Henry's stunned. He says that even if she has the physical article, it's a hassle to maintain. He asks if there is a reason she withdrew the physical article. Then Margaret told him the reason. Henry wonders if it is to prepare in case the council goes bankrupt. But it was too sloppy to call it an explanation. It's clear Margaret's hiding something. Henry tells Jenkinson there's something he has to confirm first. Our character wants to see if the relief project Margaret planning is real. But Jenkinson wonders how Henry will verify it. First, Margaret's welfare project is on a national scale. If it's something this big, there must be quite a few involved, either companies or people. Henry offers to dig into those involved. But Jenkinson says it's difficult to investigate them all. However, there's someone marked. The richest orc in Korea, Chairman Stefan Young. After looking at Margaret's plan, most of the sites for building medical facilities were in the orc community, but the legal owner of that land is this orc. If you've made a land lease contract with her, at least you'd know how your land is being used. Then Henry offers to interrogate Stefan Jang right away. He asks Kathy to contact him. But Jang's secretary said it's been a few weeks since the chairman left for another realm. No way the famous workaholic is taking a trip to another realm for weeks. The office said it's a rest vacation. The timing is too perfect. Henry starts doubting if he really went on a trip. If Stefan Jang messed with Margaret, then he must have been killed without a trace. This woman is a real psychopath. This is a story even dragons whisper about, but Jenkinson says Margaret is a bit of an odd dragon. Regarding the dragon, who looks exactly like her dead ex-husband, Jenkinson found out there are a lot of missing dragons among them. But one fact is even scarier than this. Margaret's ex-husband died in China, and there's a rumor that she killed him too. Jenkinson says she killed him just because her younger husband aged and no longer fit her taste. Even though there was no evidence, it was dismissed. But the guys who met that woman keep disappearing. If it doesn't sit well with you, killing an old orc is hardly a feat. When Henry hears stories like this, it makes her doubt Margaret. But he offers to handle her request first. Jenkinson is concerned if it's certainly okay. Henry says now that Stefan Jang isn't here, it's going to be tough to dig into Margaret from the outside. So he offers to dig into the details as they undertake the mission. If Margaret's misdeeds are true, it's up to Jenkinson to handle it. If it's not the truth, then all Henry needs is the DNA data as usual. The chairman says he'll contact Margaret. Henry arrives at Margaret's bank. Right away, the branch manager in a hurry welcomes him. The man begs our character to take care of this matter, but Henry says he'd like to speak with the bank manager. The manager's so worried that his voice trembles. He says that the bank manager quit a few days ago due to an unexpected accident. Looks like he's been disposed of. So this man is the acting manager right now. Henry asks to check the CCTV first. The hero can't believe he saw the real Dalent. He has seen the real deal for the first time in 800 years. There are millions of crystals fused inside it. The manager shows the scene from the incident. Henry's surprised. That ripple when Dalent disappeared was similar to the waves that occurred when Mr. Lakefield's spirit returned to the afterlife. If this vanished into the spirit realm, there's almost no way to find it again. The manager almost cries when he hears the word vanished. He asks if that means there was a fault in storage. Looks like Henry will have to see the storage first. The manager agrees to bring him there right away. The hero walks inside. Security measures seem to be solidly in place. Not only physical defense, but there are also layers of magical barriers. It's the largest exorcism ward seen on Earth. Ghosts wouldn't even dare to approach. The manager asks if Henry has any idea why. The hero says that whether thieves stole Dalent with magic or it vanished into the spirit realm, there will always be traces left behind. No matter what the reason, if there's something strange, the lingering light will shine brightly. But weirdly, it looks like there are no traces. The spirit sure knows how to make a scene. Whether Dalent vanishes due to magic or evaporated, there should be traces left. But seeing there's nothing at all. Worried, the manager asks what happened to the Dalent. Henry offers to take a look outside the bank first. What the hell? There's no traces of magic even outside. It's not like someone intruded with magic. But it's not just a storage error, and there wasn't any trace of the Dalent vanishing either. Henry wonders what could that be and suddenly notices a spy. He quickly neutralizes the bird that was flying around. He ties it down and it turns out to be a young girl. Henry approaches her, saying that spying with that ability isn't a hobby, so asks who she is. He says that if she doesn't want to suffer more than a blood clot in her legs, she must answer quickly, but the girl tells the hero to shut up. She yells at him, saying to not dare lay a hand on her. Also, she calls him a filthy capitalist, dragon's lapdog. By these words, the girl reveals her identity with a bang. If she's talking using such expressions like capitalist dragon, she's Red Star, those darn thieves. The girl is outraged by his words, saying they're redistributing the capital monopolized by the dragon. Henry sighs, asking what they're up to at Margaret Bank, maybe planning to raid it or something. The girl yells that this society won't change because of voluntary like him, saying he should be ashamed. She shouts that they're aiding that dragon's plundering, saying their wealth is built by exploiting the poor. But by her words, a dragon's lapdog like Henry wouldn't understand, since he's living comfortably under the dragon's wings. Capitalism is a weapon to oppress the workers. The girl had a good lesson in ideology for sure. So she's going to bring down the dragon. Henry asks about what she will do after that. He offers to go somewhere and talk, cutting his arm and splashing blood on her. Henry doesn't want to hear human screams from outside. He tells her not to worry, saying this is just ordinary teleportation magic. But suddenly her whole body starts to swell. It looks like self-destruction magic. Henry's surprised she's asking for mercy now, and in just a moment her body explodes. It's not like he tried to blow her up. The hero wonders if someone secretly casted a spell. Maybe they're worried about information leak. What on earth are those Red Star guys trying to hide? All the workers from the bank run out because of that explosion sound, but Henry stops them. He'll have to check it out. Since she didn't take her own life and died in dreadful agony, that woman's soul will soon become a spirit. Henry mumbles some spell and the girl's spirit starts to rise. Our character needs to get information from the spirit. He has to suppress the spirit and read its memories, so he flies up to catch it. With a spell, he blocks the spirit's movement and watches its memories. He sees a red-haired woman. Looks like she's the one pulling the strings. But Henry can't understand how they know that Margaret's bank got robbed. It's a secret even from the police, so it's certain that the Red Star is the culprit. Since there's no physical form to bind, Henry can't hold on any longer and the spirit flies away. Meanwhile, Kathy is sleeping as her phone rings. It's Henry. He asks her to find every related information about the Red Star. The hero knows the spirit didn't know how to find the Dalent. He can't imagine how those Red Star guys managed to get it. A few days ago, the ghost boy named Mason was sitting on the roof, observing the street, when another ghost guy offered to go watch something fun together. The guy asks if the boy knows the actor Con Davidson. He got caught cheating with a half-elf idol 10 years younger than him, and it's a huge scandal now, throwing, slapping. Mason asks to stop doing such ignorant things. It's because of ghosts like the guy others have to protest like that. Many ghosts were protesting to protect the rights of ghosts, so they had the right to exist. Mason said that in the future, people will install exorcism lines in all new buildings. All ghosts are treated as potential criminals because of some ghosts crossing the line like they're the big shot. The guy asked why Mason was just standing there watching instead of joining in. Well, it was because of the knife stuck in the boy's throat. Too much aversion to the outside world makes participation impossible. But after the protest, Mason offered to go to the cafe, as the guy noticed something horrible. The people were using an exorcism shockwave generator on the protesters. In just one moment, all the ghosts were gone, but Mason continued sitting like nothing happened. Suddenly, a woman approached Mason. She was looking for the penguin ghost with a knife stabbed in its neck. Surprised, Mason asked who she was. The woman named Allison pulled out the Red Star card, asking the ghost to talk for a moment. Later, she thanked him for accompanying her to the Red Star office. Mason said it was nothing since he owes a lot to the Red Star during his lifetime. When he was alive, he was really poor. There were times when his siblings and he had nothing to eat, and they were starving. But thanks to the Red Stars, they survived multiple times. Since they shared the food from the rich, even after Mason died, if he could help the Red Stars, he would. The Red Star is responsible for maintaining public safety in this country, making them sort of real-life heroes. Allison was glad to hear that, but Mason asked what business the Red Star had with him. And then Allison said that the Red Star needed his help. He was schooled, since he's just a ghost who can't steal or fight or anything. Allison laughed, asking if he can ignore the exorcism ritual. Actually, her friend who was helping with the protest saw it when the same emitter was fired during the last ghost protest. Mason was still fine after that shockwave that swept through the entire area. Actually, Allison's installed a strong exorcism barrier in the office too, but Mason didn't even notice that. She offered to end with the ability testing for then and asked if Mason could help them. The ghost asked about the task. Allison named the chairman Stefan Jang. She said he's a beast, literally. Orc gangs funding, illegal drug distribution, and even underage prostitution. Stefan Zhang's involved in all sorts of shady businesses. The Red Star's been following him for a long time then. Along the way, a certain ghost helped them a lot. But on the day Stefan met Margaret, that ghost suddenly disappeared. If they've been caught, the highest chance is that the main safe of Margaret Bank headquarters is there. So Allison asked Mason to infiltrate the bank and provide them with the layout of the interior. They would then proceed with the rescue operation. Of course, she promised a generous compensation. Allison looked into Mason and heard that he has 2 living younger sisters. Moreover, they're minors. Then, through a trustworthy foundation, Allison promised to provide monthly support to Mason's siblings. And the Red Star would move to a safe neighborhood, perfect for 2 young ladies to live in. So, Allison asked once again if Mason could help them. He understood that if the Red Star supported them, it would make things a bit easier for his siblings, even after he's gone. And they still needed to send the youngest to high school, so of course Mason agreed to help. That evening, he got into the bank and found the Margaret Bank vault. Mason wondered if that ghost was really trapped inside there. The exorcism power around the vault was incredible. If it were another ghost instead of Mason, they'd be bounced all the way to America. And so he made it inside, asking if the ghost was there. But instead, he faced a beautiful yellow light. It was the most incredible thing Mason had ever seen. He pulled his palm to touch it, as his body started absorbing this light. A little after, Allison explained that it was Dalent, currency used by aliens. They say even a slight shock can make it evaporate into thin air. Yeah, it seems like it disappeared after Mason touched the barrier. He thoroughly searched the bank, but there was no sign of the ghost. He asked about what they should do then. Allison said that if it's not Margaret Bank, she would have to look into other suspicious places. Mason managed to break through Margaret Bank's security, so he would be able to go to the next location. And it's even more dangerous than the Margaret Bank. It's Goryong, the lair of Margaret. As Mason thoroughly searched the inside of the bank, then Allison asked to tell her about the layout of the bank, everything he remembered. We return to the real time. Henry's looking through the CCTV again. He's curious how these Red Star bastards managed to steal the Dalent, but can't figure out why they stole it. Anyway, if they steal Dalent, they wouldn't be able to trade with it or exchange it for Earth money. Henry thinks they probably don't even know much about Dalent in the first place. Knowing the publication law doesn't mean they can endlessly produce them like the committee. And all Henry knows is that Dalent is needed for soul removal. Dalent could have been used to consume or even to erase the memories engraved in the soul. If Henry retrieves the Dalent from the Red Star, he might find a clue to regain his memory. The phone rings and it's Bram. Henry says that he's quite busy. The orc just wanted to ask if the hero hadn't sealed that frying pan yet. Bram wants to use it just one last time. Henry sighs, telling him to use it and put it back properly. Come to think of it, Red Star's main activity was the orc community. So Henry asks Bram if the orc community is still under his jurisdiction, and the orc confirms. Who else would take charge of this area besides him? Henry asks if Bram noticed anything strange about the Red Star guys lately. The orc asks if it's because of Chairman Stefan Zhang's incident. Intrigued, Henry asks what's wrong with him. Bram says that the Chairman Zhang is said to be on a rest vacation, but honestly, the police don't believe that information. Stefan is a big wig who secretly sponsors the orc gang, so he's one of the police's top surveillance targets. But suddenly he disappeared without a trace, and the police are trying to uncover the hidden truth. For now, the police see Red Star as the prime suspect. Henry asks if Stefan Zhang and the activity zones overlap. Bram confirms. Not long ago, they caught Red Star sneaking around Zhang's area. Henry wonders if Stefan was killed by Margaret. No, he can't be sure yet. He has to go ask directly. The hero receives a message from Kathy. She looked into Red Star's headquarters and found out they established a boarding private school there. It turns out the headquarters is also the base for an undercover foundation. Henry's furious at those bastards. So with Kathy's instruction, he arrives at the place where those guys have their headquarters. It's a boarding private school established by Red Star through a disguised foundation. In that case, police won't be able to easily intervene. Impulsively attacking a school in the slums would only tarnish their image with the police. Henry thanks Kathy and hangs up. If Red Star uses the kids as shields, then the hero's got his own plans too. He throws special paper at the school to create a barrier that no one can enter without his consent. First, Henry will evacuate the civilians from this place. He cuts his hand, mumbling a spell to summon numerous helping spirits. Suddenly, there is a power outage at school. All the students are concerned. Some of them tell everybody to not make such a fuss, as a huge, terrible beast appeared next to them. Horrified, all the students start running away and calling the teacher. They are almost near the exit as they notice the fog. They have no choice, since there are numerous beasts behind. And so they notice no fog at the main gate, so they start running there. Suddenly, the loudspeaker announces that it's dangerous outside, so it tells to not move recklessly. All the students are told to return to the dormitory and wait until further instructions. Henry's so mad at these bastards, he guesses there's no choice. He'll just have to scare them a bit more with necromancy. This ability is different from necromancy, which is a form of black magic. The back door is blocked, so the kids are running at the front one. While necromancy manipulates the bodies of the dead, spirit arts control the wandering souls without a physical form, a sorcery that lends power to the specters, enabling them to exert influence over the living. Some of the kids hesitate if they even can go out, since they said on the broadcast to stay inside, but it's quite not time to argue about that. Kids don't want to die, so they run away from the school. Henry thinks there probably won't be any more kids on campus, so now he can burst in to find the Red Star bastards. After some wandering, he notices an armored door. It's definitely not what you'd expect to find in the school basement. Henry is already about to open it, as some kid attacks him from behind. But in just a moment, the boy falls on the ground while his blood runs. Henry can't understand what is going on and why the students are attacking. Especially this kid. He has an aura linked to a cursed artifact, a weapon wielder type abilities. Henry wonders if the Red Star establishes schools to select kids with abilities, then brainwashing them to use their powers like that woman from before. The hero intends to enter the room again, but plenty of kids start blocking him with different kinds of weapons. Brainwashed kids ended with a feigning curse. If it wasn't Henry, but a special forces unit, they would have all been dead. These poor kids are treated like disposable meat shields from the start. Finally, Henry enters the room, facing plenty of adults trying to escape. All look extremely terrified. The hero finds it strange that among those trying to stop him, there isn't a single adult. These bastards are using the clueless ones as bait. Only the bosses, the adults, are running away. One of the orcs jumps at Henry, calling him a dragon's slave, but gets torn in small pieces. Everyone starts running away in fear. The room becomes filled with blood. Henry catches one man who is trembling in the corner of the room. The hero asks where the Dalent is. Trembling, the man says that was an accident. He tells Henry they sensed it the moment they touched the ghost. Our character thought this man was spouting nonsense, but he swore. He claimed it was a ghost that doesn't react to exorcisms, and that ghost invaded the bank vault. Only the higher-ups know the details, but the man described this ghost as a penguin with a knife stuck in its neck. And the man told Henry where this ghost is now. Those Red Star guys really messed up big time, sending a ghost into the lair of the dragon. If they get caught, Red Star will disappear completely. Originally, the lair of the ancient dragon had a much stronger exorcism barrier than the bank vault. Henry claims it's impossible to be a ghost that can't be exorcised. Even if Dalent touches the ghost, it doesn't make sense that they sensed it. There was no trace of Dalent inside the safe. Henry'll have to find out what the truth is. He'll need to find that ghost first. Meanwhile, Mason is already there. He never imagined there would be a place like this underground in Namsan. He heard that this exorcism circle is even more dangerous than a bank vault, but it looks like it won't work on Mason either. All right. Then he rushed to rescue his poor ghost friend. A day before, Mason was talking with his ghost friend. The boy said that it felt stronger at the bank than the exorcism charms in regular buildings, but it was still easy to pass through. The guy's surprised Mason didn't get caught. He's been living as a ghost for 15 years and picked up quite a bit of knowledge. Exorcism magic works the same way whether it's used by humans or dragons. The difference is in its power, which means Mason's an overpowered ghost that nothing can touch. So even if he goes to the lair, nothing will happen. By the way, the guy asked why it doesn't work on Mason, but the boy's not sure. The guy assumed that the way Mason died affected his strength. They know how vengeful spirits who died horribly have stronger spiritual power. The guy said it's the same with ghosts. He asked if there was a reason behind Mason's death. Boy sighed, asking if there ever is a normal reason for someone dying. They're all extraordinary. That's true, but the guy asked if they catch the murderer who killed Mason. The boy doesn't know and hasn't bothered to check lately. He didn't sign up for a part-time job to end up like this. Who would have thought Mason would be wearing this ridiculous mask and get stabbed with a knife? He can't understand why this cursed sword lingers even after becoming a ghost. Anyway, Mason thanked the dragon's lair would be fine. He thanked the friend for listening and went off. We return back to Mason now, wandering in the lair. He says this place is too big. It feels like it's going to take quite some time. Allison said earlier that Margaret rarely comes back until finishing all the schedules. She's scheduled to return late tonight, so Mason can search without worries. He decided to start from one side first. After quite a long wandering, Mason faces an enormous amount of gold, money, jewelry, and other treasures. It feels like he's searched through dozens of rooms but still cannot find that ghost. Margaret will be back any minute now. Suddenly, Mason hears a physic wave sent by a ghost. He rushes to it right away. Once Mason finds the ghost's location, Red Star will come to the rescue somehow. And Mason finally found the source of the plea. It turns out to be a dragon surrounded with fire. Mason is quite confused, thinking this isn't just an ordinary ghost. It's a vengeful spirit. The dragon ghost is crying, begging for help. It's so hot for him. But also the dragon is begging Margaret to save it. When Mason returns, he tells Allison about the expedition. He says he didn't end up exploring the entire lair. Then she asks him at least to tell about what he did explore inside. Mason says that the dragon spirit was trapped in the lair. Allison is not even surprised after hearing this. She thanks the boy for the information, making notes on her tablet. Allison says they'll meet back here in 3 days. Surprised, Mason asks if they're going to the lair again in 3 days. It's correct, since they need more information. But the ghost asks if they cannot do that since it's too dangerous, though Allison reminds that Mason came back safely this time. Mason starts yelling, saying he didn't know a dragon ghost was lurking there. Plus, that specter was emitting immense spiritual power. It's evidence that it suffered terribly and died. It's clear that was done by Margaret. Mason is so worried that there's a way he doesn't know about, and he can be caught. Though Allison says that his younger siblings who receive support from them would also consider. Right, Mason's youngest sibling has been worried for a long time. Allison says that if this matter is handled well, they'll resolve the worries of Mason's youngest sibling. He didn't even know what she was concerned about. And at this pace, he doesn't have any other choice but to agree to meet in 3 days. Mason's sister is begging the doctor to get the surgery for her. She really can't live like this anymore. She cries, saying the doctor has no idea how hard it is to live as a half-orc woman in this country. But the doctor can't do a surgery that carves the girl's entire bones because she can die from it. Mason's youngest sibling's appearance complex got worse after entering high school. But in the end, the boy finds it weird to spy on his siblings. As he wanders across the streets, he meets Henry. Mason has to answer a lot of questions for our character. So Henry tells him to not even think about running away.